Good morning, Raptor Freaks. Lexi Otts here, Sunday morning, so it's Sunday special report. And today we're going to take a look at the recent firings of Mike Budenholzer and Nick Nurse and talk about how two coaches that coaches championship teams in recent years could lose their jobs so quickly like this. Now, is this something uncommon that championship coaches lose their job within years of winning a championship? Actually, you'd be surprised. There's lots of championship coaches that lose their jobs throughout the history of the NBA within 5 years of winning their championship. In some ways, if you think about it logically, you get to that highest pinnacle, you have a higher expectations for how you're going to perform year after year. Once you win one, you're like, everybody's like, you got to win another one. So in some ways, you're doomed in some ways. And that especially if there's a downturn in the output of your team and how well they play, it gets more pronounced partly because of your success from before. Now, each of these firings have a very specific difference to them. The firing of Coach Budenholzer is not the same as firing Nick Nurse. And I'm going to talk about some of the clear distinctions of why today. First let's start with Frank Vogel because he's kind of like in this subject because he is one of the three championship coaches that has been fired since he won the championship with the Lakers in the bubble. And you wonder, well, we kind of know why he was fired. Don't you guys understand why Frank Vogel was fired on the Lakers? Well, it's partly because of LeBron. It really is. He may have been the guy at that time in that spot. But in some ways, that has never really been an important position, the coach of the Lakers, while LeBron has been there. It's very much, you're just here sitting in a seat kind of thing. And, in some ways, people don't respect Frank Vogel for being the championship coach, partly because of this phenomenon. Now, things went real south for the Lakers after the bubble championship, and they didn't make the playoffs for a couple years. So it's obvious, like you go from championship, and if LeBron's not real thrilled with you, boom, you lose your job. So, I mean, him losing his job is very specific. It has to do with the Lakers, it has to do with LeBron, and it has to do with a really, really high caliber, like uh, expectation from the Lakers fan nation. The fan nations can have a huge, huge part in people getting fired. And this is a big part of why Nurse and Budenholzer got fired, actually, is, there was a lot of noise out there with blame getting hung around the necks of these coaches for these performances these last season. But they're very, very different situations. Well, let's talk about Steve Kerr next. Steve Kerr is another one of these championship coaches in recent years, but he has been safe. Well, this is because the Warriors have really worked hard to ensconce themselves with this old championship kind of core mentality of keeping the team together for a long period of time to really wrench out as much championship or whatever they can get out of this core of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and Steve Kerr as their coach. They're smart about this. In some ways, they've had down years since their championship before the Raptors championship, and then between the one they won last year. They had some really bad years, but they hung with Kerr. Well, why would they do that with him, and we wouldn't do that with Nurse, or they wouldn't do that with Budenholzer? Well, partly because Kerr, in some ways, has not lost the confidence of the fan base. Kerr has not lost the confidence of the players in certain ways. Like Vogel lost the confidence of the players to a degree, but Nurse lost the confidence of like the management and the fan base. Not necessarily the players, but those people. And this matters. You losing the confidence of the management and the fan base can very much be a problem. Well, Kerr, once again, I don't know why or how the Golden State Warriors are exclusive to be able to keep an old school mentality of keeping a championship core together for like a decade. That's kind of bullshit. In some ways, more teams should be trying to be like them, like that. But we're not, and I hate that. If I After we won the championship in 2019, I wanted us to be like the Warriors and keep the band together as long as possible. Well, either the NBA didn't allow it, Masai wasn't having it, or we just didn't keep it together. The forces that be pulled us apart and took apart our core for our championship team. We never got a chance to try and repeat. We never got a chance to do this. We never got a chance to do that. And it kind of sucks. But in some ways, the hidden benefit of not having our championship core stick around in Toronto is that we get to rebuild and maybe even be on the cutting edge quicker to get around to that second championship just as fast. So it's such a tough, specific by case basis, which what's going on with things. And I'll talk specifically about Nurse and Coach Bud in a second. Let me see what you guys are saying real quick. MSJ saying, I am fine with Bud taking the job or Stack or Becky. Nick Nurse sort of gave up on us, and why? Not sure, but I think any coach will bring new ideas. Coaches are fall guys many times and just need a new location. This is such an astute first comment, and all of it is very, very good. I don't know if I'm cool with Bud coming here. In some ways, I do not like that switch. Even if the Milwaukee Bucks take Nick Nurse, I don't necessarily want to take their coach. In some ways, I'm very much with Monique on this one. She's also said, no, thank you. It's like, nah, that's all right. You guys can keep Budenholzer. We don't want him here. He can go somewhere else in some cases. So I'm not totally with that. I'm definitely with Stacker Becky for sure. Now, this is maybe the biggest reason why Nick Nurse got fired in the second sentence of this statement. Nick Nurse sort of gave up on us. Yeah, that's really the main reason why we had to fire him, is because in some ways trust was lost with him. You know, he said that his most important thing was to make sure the Raptors have the best chance to win. That as the head coach of the Toronto Raptors, his goal was to give them the best chance to win. Well, he failed at that this year. And then also at the same time, we lost trust in him because he made a knuckleheaded press conference. And that to me was the main reason why we needed to fire him for sure, was because in some ways we got this side of him that's kind of not bought in, this kind of wishy-washy. And then we saw from the inside on Open Gym how the players weren't bought in, partly because Nick wasn't bought in. Yeah, that's really toxic. That's no good. That's where you get a mid-level bad effort for the whole entire season, from not approaching things in the right way, coming at it in the right way. So the fan nation of the Raptors came after Nick in some ways in very critical ways, partly because of him checking out before the Philadelphia game. It really pissed me off. I got really, really mad at Nick for self-destructing our season this year. In fact, that may have been part of it. Masai and Bobby could have been sitting in the office and saying, Nick totally screwed us for this season. He made it so that it's going to be really hard for us to be successful this postseason. And this was one of our goals this year. It's like, why do we play all 82 games to get to this point, to have this chance to get in? And we're going to be set up to fail because our coach has given up, basically, because that is very much a good, accurate description of what happened with Nick Nurse this year. He gave up. In some ways, there's a lot of trust that's involved in being a head coach, and the trust was lost with Nick Nurse this year. And that's a very different thing. That's what happened with Budenholzer. In some ways, Budenholzer didn't lose any trust. Budenholzer didn't lose, those kind of things. He lost the trust of the fans to a degree. And the reason, all right, I'm going to say two things got Budenholzer fired. Two things right now. He wouldn't have gotten fired if Nick Nurse hadn't got fired. I'm going to tell you that right now. If we had not fired Nick Nurse, that first domino wouldn't hit the domino that hit Budenholzer and fired him. In fact, the attractiveness of Nick Nurse being on the market, it may have compelled the Milwaukee Bucks to fire Budenholzer, because that's an upgrade to them. Because their biggest problem and gripe with Budenholzer, and this is what all the noise was around him in the weeks coming up, like the way that they lost to Miami in the first round, it really doesn't look good. He has the best record in the league with the Milwaukee Bucks. He has a home court advantage that goes all the way right through to the finals. But he couldn't capitalize on it because of a veteran, gritty team with Jimmy Butler and them messing up the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round. It's like all that work for the whole season for naught. And Bucks fans watching the series against Miami could see adjustments he could have been making during the game. He could have made defensive adjustments. He could have changed this. He could have changed that. And he was stubborn and slow to do it. Just like Dwayne Casey, when he was the coach of the Raptors, he was too slow to adjust and change. Well, in some ways, the Bucks fans are looking at him as being like, this guy always screws us over because he's so stubborn with the way he does things. And he's just not thinking out of the box. He's not doing things that will help us win in the moment for the situation that's going on. And when they heard that Nick Nurse was available, well, they really went crazy. The Bucks fans, they started saying, "Dump Budenholzer and get Nurse now." And that's really what I think they're going to do. That in a lot of ways, Nick Nurse will fit the Milwaukee Bucks really well because we know Nick Nurse is a good coach for a team that's very veteran, has a lot of experience, that plays at a high level already. He's not very good with the young team that's developing, that has to learn how to win again, but he's very good for a team like the Bucks. And the thing that they value right now is split second decision making in the game by the coach to adjust, and that is one of Nick Nurse's fortes. So, of course, Bucks fans looking at this whole situation saying, "Get the fuck out of here, Budenholzer." I don't care because, like, look, I'll read something right now. Breaking news: the Milwaukee Bucks dismiss coach Mike Budenholzer. Sources tell ESPN Budenholzer is out after the East top seed suffered a first-round loss to the Miami Heat. Well, this was just weeks before his brother had died in a car accident, like in the middle of the playoffs. Now, does that get factored into things? A lot of people are looking at the Milwaukee's front office as being very cold-hearted, firing this man who's done very good things for that franchise at a time when he's in grieving of his brother dying during the series. And could that have had a factor in things? Could this has been just horrible, grim timing that allowed the Milwaukee Bucks, a number one seed, to lose to the Miami Heat, partly because of this, partly because of a little bit of injuries to Giannis, all kinds of different things added up to it. And Miami came out of the first round. That's really what it is. The Nick Nurse became available, and he looks like a savior and a fixer to all their problems with the Milwaukee Bucks this season. So that's what the fans put pressure, and boom, they fired their coach in a very sad situation. It's really interesting and really, really different. I hope Logical Raptors Fanatics here. I want you to be involved, Mike. I know you have a lot to say on this. You know what I'm going to do, Mike? I'm going to give you a moderator because I want you to talk as much as you want today, because I need you to go ahead and give me your whole take on this. I know you had stuff to say about this the other day, and I want you to have free reign. Go right on ahead and tell me everything you want to say about the Budenholzer Nick Nurse topic that we're talking about today. Project Truth always. Salute the real ones. Thank you, Mike. And great drop yesterday. I'll watch it later today. I was really busy last night. I saw you dropped it, but I'm going to make sure I try and watch it today. G saying Golden State didn't make the playoffs 2 years in a row and still kept the group together. Credit to them. Yeah, this is something that, they didn't overreact. They didn't get weird. They understood that Kerr's good for them, and they didn't overreact. In some ways, I question, did we overreact with Nick Nurse? Well, this is very, very different. This isn't like Kerr didn't do anything like Nurse did. And that's why, they don't worry about him. They trust him. They understand he's a rock in their foundation, in their franchise. That they don't have to worry about him. Like, is he going to do something flaky, like say something stupid like he did, like before the Philadelphia game, like Nick did? No, he won't. He's very smart and he sticks with his team. And that's part of why we're so upset and sad about Nick Nurse, is because he didn't. He lost his allegiance. He lost a lot of things with the Raptors front office trust. And it's a totally different kind of thing. Now, if Kerr had said something like this in the 2 years of losing when the Warriors were missing the playoffs, then he might have gotten fired. So in some ways, it really is Nick Nurse's fault that he's out of his job with the Toronto Raptors. Things were smooth. We didn't want to fire you. We wanted to keep you around, just like Popovich and Kerr. And you fucked that up, Nick, by really kind of showing that we couldn't trust you. It's a really crazy, tough, cutthroat business. And you got to be real one, man. You can't just walk the walk. You got to talk. You can't just talk the talk. You got to walk the walk. If you're with us, you're with us. But at some point, it made it seem like you're not like totally bought in and in the right place to be the head coach of the Toronto Raptors at this point. So it sucks. If Kerr had made a verbal mistake in an interview, I'm sure he would have been fired. Like, if he had done the exact same thing Nick did, he probably would have gotten fired in Golden State, especially if it happened with the timing right before the postseason. So it's very fishy, very, very fishy stuff. G's also saying Kawhi leaving was the main reason, in my opinion. That would be like Curry leaving Golden State. They would have had to make changes. Yeah, they sunk it right away. In some ways, there's a lot of forces that were involved in there. I in some ways thought that Kawhi was going to stay. because he liked winning. He was like, what I kept saying that summer, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, Kawhi. Things are not broken here in Toronto. You've got a good situation to go forward and try and win multiple championships in. And then there's some stupid report later. It comes out, oh, I didn't think the Toronto team was good enough to repeat. That's so stupid, man. Did you see how we had the best record in the Eastern Conference the year after you left? You could have repeated with us. And we saw who won the next championship. It was a stupid ass bubble championship for the Lakers. If you had been on our side in the bubble against Boston, we would have kicked the Celtics' ass. We would have gotten really far, and maybe we would have won that championship, and we would have 2 championships in Toronto. So, Kawhi, we can speculate on this all we want, and that's a sad thing. We don't know because you never gave us a chance. And I really do believe that championship teams should be allowed to try and defend their throne and get a chance to be a repeat champion. And when you bust up the best player on the team right away in that summer, well, that's fucking us to be able to try and repeat. And it's too bad. I know that Kawhi has regrets. The way that things have gone the last 5 years have not been good. And he probably would have been better off staying in Toronto. I think that a lot of people realize that and say that themselves. U.S. media types would probably say the same damn thing. They say, Kawhi, you're an idiot. You should have stayed in Toronto instead of going to the Clippers. And that totally, you would have had a different destiny. Who knows? You may have been more in the talks of the greatest of all time because you had a couple more championships with the Toronto Raptors. Shane is saying Golden State Warriors have also been well over the luxury tax for a long while. Yeah, they have special rules that don't apply to them. I mean, in some ways, it's the money of that area. There's a lot of people making money off of tech. So in some ways, it's a rich organization, and they don't mind spending. In some ways, they're like the Yankees of the NBA. They overspend every year, and that's just what they've chosen to do, and they're paying to win. And that's fine. You have the rules, you can go do it. You can go do it. But some people are running their teams like businesses, and they're trying to stay in the black and out of the red. Well, they may not go as far as the Warriors with what they're doing with their salary. But yeah, that is part of it too, is that they've been in the luxury tax for quite a while. And that's part of the way they're able to do what they do. Infamous, I gave you your dunk for the other day. It is on the dunk sheet, Infamous. You got your first dunk. I had to make sure I got that down this morning. Good morning, freaks. The Golden State Warriors have long money. People don't understand. Teams lose money after winning sometimes. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that can happen, but this is the thing. Listen, you win, you increase the value of your team. So it's all kind of works together. Like our team value shot up like crazy after we won the 2019 championship. We became a more valuable franchise. So in some ways, you spend that money to win, you get the reap the rewards of winning, and then there are financial economic repercussions afterwards that are very positive. So it's almost like yeah, you got to spend money to make a lot more money later. And that's part of the reason why we need to win another championship, because it's an economic boom for the city of Toronto. It's a boom for Canada, and it's a boom for the team. And as Masai said, we need more validity to show that that first championship wasn't a fluke and that we're for real. And then in some ways, he wants to validate the Raptors by winning a second championship and saying that first one, yeah, see, we can do it again, motherfuckers. And I'm all about that. I love that Masai's on the same page with me, because in some ways I thought the same way. It's like, look, people aren't going to take us seriously, even though we won a championship. Well, we need to go fucking get another one. And then they'll really start to take us seriously. Yeah. Yeah. G saying that's true, Shane. I think 3 Golden State Warriors make more than our entire roster on contract or something close to that. That is crazy. Crazy. Well, this is the way the NBA is letting them play, letting them do things. Well, so be it. They're an interesting team. They lost last night to the Lakers. I predicted this yesterday. The referees for Miami and the Lakers, well, they got the job done. The Lakers beating the Warriors. If the Warriors had won last night, that series would be over pretty soon. So the Lakers needed to go to Golden State and win that one. Or no, they were in LA. Sorry, they were in LA last night. But yeah, interesting games yesterday. Miami getting up on New York, of course. And then the Lakers are now up on the Warriors. Now, the Warriors will do better coming back. Here are your refs for today's games. The other 2 series are playing today. It's Boston at Philadelphia, Game 4, and Denver at Phoenix, Game 4. John Goebel is the crew chief in Philadelphia with James Williams and Giannis Petraitis as the 2 refs. A reminder, this game will actually be broadcast on NBA Referee's Twitter account with the referees in the control center, like commenting on the game while it's on. So if you're like me, you want to watch the game and listen to what they're saying. It's going to be Sean Wright who's in the replay center. So you'll hear Sean Wright talking during the game for Boston and Philly, kind of going over things and explaining things from a referee's perspective. This could be very enlightening and exciting to watch. So John Goble, James Williams, and Gianmitas Petraitis all favor the Boston Celtics today. Even though Philadelphia is at home, the ref crew is on the Celtics side. So we'll have to see if they get a 3-1 lead today in Philadelphia, because in some ways it's looking like that. Denver at Phoenix later on. Tony Brothers is the crew chief with Ed Malloy. They got Ed Malloy and Tony Brothers ref in this game. That's crazy. And Jason Goble, the other Goble brothers, the third ref. Now, they all three of them favor Denver pretty heavily. So Phoenix, you're in trouble. You're at home, and you don't have Scott Foster, but you have three refs that very heavily historically favor the Denver Nuggets. So my choices today to win are actually the way teams. Boston and Denver should win today, according to referees' records. So yeah, remember that the refs are actually going to be calling the game during the game. You can listen to the commentary of Sean Wright during the Boston-Philadelphia game this afternoon. So check that out. It'll be through Twitter. If you want to find it, find the NBA referees account on Twitter, and that's where you'll be able to listen to Sean Wright from. So I'm excited about this. I think it'll be fun to hear what he has to say during the game, and then maybe it'll illuminate a little bit more about the refs, and I'll have more information for my ref report from it. So we'll have to see. Let's see. Sas Anya is here. That is Cowboy under his lady's name. Good morning, Lex and Raptors Freaks. It's a Sunday. Let's go. Sorry I can't be there every day for your streams, Lex. The best Raptors content on the planet. I want Becky or Stackhouse. There you go. You go, Anya. You go, Bradley. You go with your young family and all your great young kids. Yeah, I appreciate when you drop in and just say hi and say what's up and stuff like that. I like Becky and Jerry also. Becky or Jerry Masai, get one of those two. If they will come here, get one of those two. Those are our people we like, is Becky Hammon or Jerry Stackhouse. I know Becky Hammon may be tough to pry away from the Las Vegas Aces. Somebody was saying, I was talking to Stevie Roos, and I was like, dude, let's just pay her the money that we were going to pay Nick Nurse this year, $8 million. You give $8 million to Becky Hammon, she might come to Toronto. And Steve's like, no, you don't pay her as much as Nick. I'm like, don't be a fucking misogynist. Give that woman the money she deserves. If we're going to pay Nick Nurse $8 million next season, we might as well pay Becky $8 million. The money's already there. You know what I'm saying? I may even say pay her $10 million. Give her a fucking $10 million contract to come here and coach the Toronto Raptors. I don't care. Throw money at her, get her here, Masai. That's what I want to know. Bring her here. MSJ saying Kawhi didn't allow it. The guy is a blessing, a curse, and he has never left us. Going forward, Bud is not the best pick. I think we should bring in new blood, someone who has a development plan for us. Yeah. It sucks that Kawhi didn't allow it, but in some ways, was it just him? There may have been some weird forces on him talking to him, other than just Uncle Dennis. There may have been some, I really think that the NBA heavily pressured him to leave Toronto and go to the Clippers. That on the down low, if somebody made a Grizzly Truth movie, they make a Raptor Truth movie, and they really investigate this, they may be able to uncover that the NBA was silently really pressuring him to leave Toronto after this year. That in some ways they didn't want him to stay here for, because they know that we would have been a juggernaut. We would have been the favorite to win the championship again. And they didn't want to market a whole NBA season as us being the number one team. In fact, you can tell that by the way we came into the next season. They didn't give us any respect to be a repeat champion, obviously because Kawhi left. But they didn't really give us any respect or treat us in that kind of way. Well, the incumbent champion in the year after should be somebody who's very much valued and respected around the league. They didn't do that for us. That's some ways very calculated within the marketing of the NBA and directing players to where they're going to go in some ways. I really do think that on the down low, there were forces out there really, really, really pulling him hard to the Clippers. And in some ways, we were never ever going to get a chance at him, even though he probably did want to play for us. Seriously, in some ways, I don't know if he actually did want to go to the Clippers. People say that, but I don't know. It's such a stupid thing, and I really do think the NBA has their fingerprints all over this and why this happened. But you're right. He is a curse and a blessing at the same time. And in some ways, maybe we're lucky and dodged a bullet. A lot of us have said that also. If we've had Kawhi in recent years, it would have been really frustrating and really annoying if he had been load managing like he has for the Clippers. So, I'm with you. We had to bring in new blood and we started to turn things over. That's the thing. Masai, he doesn't rest on his laurels. When things start to go in a certain way, he's getting towards the next thing to help us get somewhere. We're getting through Tampa season, getting Scotty Barnes, building the core that we have now. That's all he had to do in reaction to losing Kawhi in the summer of 2019. So yeah, we gotta keep going. We do need to get a coach that has a development plan for us. That is for sure. All right, let's just do a real quick Instagram watch. Looking what the Raptor players are up to through Instagram. Yesterday, we have Pascal Siakam in Miami. Once again, the guys are in Florida. And Pascal was at the F1 event yesterday, hanging out with a Red Bull driver. I don't know the guy's name, but Pascal asking questions with number 21, the Red Bull driver, and talking about who has the busier schedule, basketball or F1. Come on, man. You're going to ask that? That's a dumb question. Well, how many races does F1 do in a month? You may do 3 or 4. Yeah. You guys aren't busier than the basketball players who are playing so many games every month and traveling constantly. Yeah, F1 schedule is not as busy. Come on. I have no idea what you guys do other than sit in a car and drive it. Do you actually do other stuff on other days to work out or do stuff? Maybe you probably do work out. But like, seriously, come on. That's a joke question. Who works harder, F1 or NBA basketball players? Come on. Seriously? You really have to ask that? Seriously? All right, Scotty. Really, really cool what Scotty was doing yesterday. Scotty is at Florida State, as I said. He's in Tallahassee this weekend, and he's at the training facility for the Seminoles. And I love seeing this place because I've been in that building. And I love seeing the old FSU basketball stuff brings me back. I had classes with old FSU basketball players because I took basketball theory classes at Florida State. This is how, seriously, I have some credentials to do this channel. I've taken a basketball theory class in university and sat in a classroom with Lamar Greer and James Collins and people like that from the 90s who played for the Seminoles on their men's basketball team. And it was coached, the teacher was the assistant coach of the men's team, the Seminoles men's team, Donnie Marsh. And it was cool. I got to be in a class with the basketball players learning basketball. So I have a lot of great memories about the Florida State Seminoles basketball team, going to games, seeing them play. When I was a kid in the 90s, like I've said before, I was at a FSU game against UNC when they had Vince Carter, and I was cheering against Vince very much at court side and yelling at him, and he got mad at me. He started bombing threes. But I have a really strong tie with FSU men's basketball program. And seeing Scotty back in Tallahassee this weekend, not only going and seeing his bro friends and hanging out and doing the bro life, because think about it, Scotty was at FSU the year we had the pandemic in 2020. He didn't get to really live the college life at Florida State in Tallahassee. So in some ways, maybe this weekend he's getting to do some of the social activities where you're not in quarantine or have them be at home and seeing people and being out and enjoying the Tallahassee kind of scene. And then also, he's going to their practice facility and he's meeting up with other former Seminoles that are in the NBA, like Terrence Mann and other guys that are on the team still. And he's practicing and working hard with those guys and getting his time in the gym right. That's right, Scotty. You be a gym rat and you go and be a gym rat at all the old haunts of old gyms that you used to be at when you were younger. You go down to South Florida. Maybe, I know you can't go to LA Fitness, but, go and check out some of your old trainers and hang out at some of your old courts and work with them, Brian Macon and such. Go back to FSU and see Coach Steve Smith, the assistant coach, and Leonard Hamilton's program there, and get some time with your friends from FSU and get out there on the court, especially since some of these guys, a lot of them are in the NBA at this point. That's a high caliber scrimmage squad that you can get going in Tallahassee. If you got Terrence Mann and a couple of those other guys on that are there right now, Dwayne Bacon from Orlando. I'm looking at who's there with him. There's a lot of notable FSU stars. that are in have either been in the NBA recently or are still in the NBA currently right now. So really, really cool to see Scotty in Tallahassee at FSU, working hard, working in their practice facility. Go Noles! Yes, FLORIDA STATE. Florida State, Florida State, Florida State. Woo! Yeah. All right. Let me keep going with the comments. Shane Waters is saying, I still don't get why they call it a salary cap. Ain't nothing capped when you can go over it. It's like salary suggestion. I know this kind of ties in with this debt ceiling thing that's going on with the states and the stupidness of that too. You know, this is a whole arbitrary like idea of a debt ceiling in the United States is holding the whole country hostage with the money because of these fucking soulless GOPers holding this shit against them. You know, you need to raise the debt ceiling. Quit fucking around, Republicans. You are playing with. You think you're playing with play money. You're playing with people's lives. You want to cause devastation for people all over your nation. You better get your fucking act together and get this debt ceiling thing fixed right with Mr. President Joe Biden and stop fucking around. In some ways, the debt ceiling and the salary cap are very similar. The salary cap's an arbitrary number where people can go over it anyway. They just have to pay a penalty and a tax. It's just money, 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 money. Just like Tom Duke is saying here. He's laughing. He's got the money tongue. He's got money bags. He's got no cap. That is no cap from Shane Waters there. Yeah, well, it's just a guide. In some ways, they've changed the collective bargaining agreement recently. So there's even more changes to how you can do things and manipulate with the salary cap and have it fitting in really premium people on the same team. In fact, they made an allowance for more people can be on your team and you can keep them together. In some ways, that's really good. And hopefully that'll benefit the Raptors with our core and keeping some of our really good players together. So we want to look at the benefits for us and any of the new rules with the collective bargaining agreement with the second umbrella they're talking about now, with as far as you can have 2 max players on your team now is basically what they're saying. Shane Waters said, morning, Tommy. Bam, bam. West Coast Raptor freaks in the house. It may be 7 o'clock in the morning over there in BC, but these gentlemen are up with us on the Raptor Freak channel talking Raptors. Oh yeah, I love it. Shane and Tom, my guys out west. Wayne Strainer's here. Good to see Wayne. Correct, G. Kawhi leaving along with Mercenary Green partially pulled apart our championship team. The bubble somewhat finished the job. Coach Bud isn't a successful manager, but he just doesn't seem to be a good fit. Yeah, I mean, he's cool in some ways. In some ways, he's too similar to Nick. He needs a team that's kind of higher level. He's not as good with a younger developing team. Milwaukee was already in good shape with Giannis when he showed up. So it's kind of like he had good keys to the car. But in some ways, when he comes to us, he may not be the right guy. He doesn't feel like the right fit. So I'm not very interested in him. Even if they go and take Nick Nurse, doesn't mean we have to go get Budenholzer. It's like I said, just because they switch their tires doesn't mean we have to go take their tires and they take ours. It seems really weird to do that. Seems really, really weird to do that. Tom Duke is saying, morning, bam, bam, bam. Tom Duke in the house. Tom Dukey, Twitch family. Infamous is saying, Masai wants to win another chip. Now people wanting Becky need to ask themselves, is she going to get us there? I say no. That's crazy talk. Listen, oh my gosh, Monique posting the fire from Becky Hammond's voice on her Instagram stories this morning. Amazing, amazing content. I don't know how I can get it to you guys so you can see it, but it is a passionate speech by her. Let me see if I can actually like get the link to it, and we will see if it'll work. Or maybe I can share it somehow. Hang on. Nope, I can't do it that way. I don't know how to do it. It's kind of like, oh man, it's such a good press conference. It's basically Becky has a whole acronym for the word trust, and it's about keeping the team together. And the way she speaks about it is passionately, and just you can tell the kind of leader she is, the kind of person in the huddle, how she would motivate these guys. Dude, if you saw her and the way she talks, you'd be like, this lady can get these guys to play at their highest level. I'm serious. So I'm telling you, she's a championship kind of person all around. In fact, she may be more of a championship coach than a championship player because she never won a championship in the WNBA as a player, but she's all about coaching the championship. She may be one of these weird players that are way better coach, and they were already amazing player, and they may be an even better coach than player. So I got to totally disagree with you here, Infamous. She will get us there. because she wants to get there and she wants to make a name for herself and be that person and known as a winner and known as a champion. In some ways, she has so many parallels to Fred VanVleet that he wants to be known and synonymous with the word champion. So does Becky Hammon. Logical saying just woke up. All right, wake up, Mike, and give me your takes. This stuff you were going to say the other day, and let me know what you're thinking about Budenholzer and Nurse and what happened there. I want to hear what you have to say. Mike has a moderator. Yeah, I just gave him a wrench because I want him to have the time to say as much as he wants and put as much out as he wants. I don't want him to be censored today. I want him to go off and tell me what he's got to say because he said he had stuff to say the other day. Project Truth always, for sure, Tom. All right, let's see. Anya's saying, good morning, Tom Duke and Raptor Freaks. Let's go. Ta-da. Ta-da. That's right. Ta-da in the phone book. Check it out. Mike's saying, all right, here we go. This is what Mike has to say about this coaching subject today. Coaches are creatures of habit. I think each coach has strengths and weaknesses in the style of the way they coach. Clearly, some are better than others, but I think it's more based on what the team needs. All right, this is great because Mike has given me a springboard to kind of go off on something else about this whole situation that has really kind of illuminated in my mind why Coach Budenholzer and Nick Nurse have been fired in the last month. It's because of this. The game is evolving at a faster pace than it ever has before in the history of the NBA. That in the last 5 years since the Raptor won the championship, the game is completely different than it was when we won the championship in 2019. That they've made rule changes, they made formatting changes, they've made changes to things like the play-in and different things, all kinds of different changes. That the NBA and the sport that it is not even the same sport that the one that Nick Nurse conquered in 2019. So the game is accelerating and changing it. And it really is who's going to keep up and take the advantages of how the game is changing to excel and be the best that they can be. And in some ways, the game is moving so fast, it's really hard for coaches to stay on the cutting edge of it. We know Nick Nurse was looked at as a guru, cutting edge coach, doing things like box and one in the finals, really having really crazy ideas and not being afraid to try them. Well, in some ways, the game has changed so much that in some ways it passed Nick Nurse. That was one thing we felt this year. It's like, is the game changing to a point where it's like it's past Nick Nurse as far as like him being cutting edge? Because it feels like that this year, that he's not a cutting edge coach, that he's not on top of things. And that some things about the game have changed so much that they're not keeping up. It could very well be the same thing with Budenholzer. He was in Milwaukee for a while, and he may have done things a certain way that worked 5 or 6 years ago or when they won the championship, but it's not going to work now. That in some ways the game is that quickly changing, that their old plans and the way they like to do things are antiquated and they're not going to fit with how the things are going now. That's interesting to me. That's very interesting to me. Wayne saying the Bucks is an awful organization. Firing the coach after the players' injuries and personal tragedy is disgraceful. Championship or bust mentality has sealed their fate. They will never win again. In some ways, I look at what the Bucks have done in the last 5 years compared to what we've done in the last 5 years, and you could definitely justify firing Nick Nurse much better than Budenholzer. The performance of the Bucks year after year, where they finish and even making the playoffs and getting a certain point in the playoffs, in some ways is very enviable by a lot of teams in the league. That the Charlotte Hornets wish they could have gotten to the places that the Milwaukee Bucks have gotten in the last 5 years under Budenholzer. And that's why, in some ways, the firing of Budenholzer is not totally fair. In some ways, like this dude has actually coached this team so well in the last 5 years and gotten them good results. They were the number one team in the NBA this past season. Sure, the failure of losing as the number one seed to the 8 seed in the first round, that's humiliating. But in some ways, you could have just sloughed that off and said whatever and kept going with him. That's why it's so weird to me, because in some ways, Budenholzer was very successful this whole entire time. He took his team to the playoffs every single year, and they got a championship. They got to different levels. They did different things. But the Bucks fans remember every failure at each time when he got to a certain point in the playoffs. If he didn't get the championship, like they talk about his failures in the series with us in 2019 when we beat them in the Eastern Conference Finals, that he didn't adjust in the right ways to stop us. In that series, they won the first 2 games of that series, and then they lost 4 straight. And a lot of Bucks fans still blame Budenholzer for being slow to adjust in that series. So that's a gripe that they built over a couple of years in a row, that Budenholzer's just not adjusting right. And well, we won the championship against Phoenix that year, but a lot of these other years, we feel like we're not doing as well as we could because Budenholzer's not adjusting fast enough. This is very similar to the years with Casey that we had, where he was getting to the playoffs and we do something, but we just wouldn't feel like he's doing a good enough job coaching in the postseason. That's the frustration of the Milwaukee Bucks fan nation, is that they feel like Budenholzer is like Casey. He just doesn't adjust. And even though it looks really good on paper, the finishes, the records in the last 5 years, it's still, you don't win when we need you to win in playoff situations. And this Miami failure is just the latest one. I don't know. I feel like in some ways that's fucked up. That Budenholzer's consistently won in Milwaukee. We can look at our past 5 years and we can see the Tampa season. We can see the season this year, and that's mid shit. And that, in some ways, is very much part of Nick Nurse's resume. The Tampa season can be forgiven to a certain extent, obviously. And in some ways, he was successful that year. But this year really was a big fail. And there was a lot of reasoning for why we should fire him, other than just the messed up press conference and him giving up. Other than, there's the development issues that he didn't develop. He didn't hit the mark on either the winning or the developing this year. And these are failures. These are failures and stuff. So it's a very weird situation with Budenholzer. I think, once again, that if we hadn't fired Nick, they wouldn't fire Nick Budenholzer. That because Nick is available and he's out there, they really are going to go get him. But they wouldn't have fired Mike Budenholzer if we hadn't fired Nick Nurse. So in some ways, it's a chain reaction firing. And it may not be totally fair to Budenholzer, and especially the timing doesn't look good. The Bucks look awful for it. They really, really do. They look terrible for firing their coach after this personal tragedy and the things that are going on with him. It's like no loyalty in sports ever. No more. There isn't. Infamous is saying, I don't believe what Kawhi said. I believe Uncle Dennis wanted him to in a larger U.S. market. Most superstars don't leave a team after winning. Well, there were demands like that. That's part of it too. They talk about what he wanted for Uncle Dennis, as far as him being in a front office position in a salary and having say in the front office with Bobby Webster. That's a little bit too much, Kawhi. He wanted to run the team to a degree, like he's been doing in the Clippers to a degree. I think at this point, he's not able to run that team anymore. And that's part of the reason why he's cut them off with communication and he's on his way out again. It'd be so weird if he showed up back here this summer somehow, some way. Would you guys be upset if Kawhi Leonard returned to the Toronto Raptors next season? I don't think I would be. I would be willing to take that gamble and see if we could get the best out of him once again, like we did in 2019. But it'd be weird. It'd be very weird. I mean, this would be an attractive place for him, and it would be a place that would be on his short list that he would be okay going to, because he knows he could have a good time here because he's done it before. And that's part of it. That's part of it right there. If he does leave the Clippers this summer, he'll have a short list of teams that he'll be willing to go to. I'll bet you the Raptors will be one of them. I will bet you money they will be. Yeah, I don't believe anything. Uncle Dennis is not a good person. And, it could be something like Kawhi doesn't want to be in California anymore because his sister's in death row, or not death row, or in prison for life now. And he's like, I don't want to be around the bad vibes here. I've been home. I've got to hang out with you guys at home a lot because I've been hurt and I'm around. And okay, yeah, I've done this. Now I'm ready to go back somewhere else or something like that. It could very well be like that. We could see. Trevor's here. Good to see Trevor J. Always good to see Trevor J in the morning with his comments and stuff. Let's see what Trevor's saying. Hang on, it jumped. Let me get back. Good morning, bro. Just having breakfast, listening to you. You always make my day. Always have a good positive energy. I appreciate that, Trevor. Hey, listen, if I can rub off on you guys and you can have a nicer, more positive Sunday, I've done a good job. That's what I want to do. I don't want y'all to be upset. I don't want him to cause more problems. I mean, we're upset because of things that happen with the team during the season, like Scott Foster in Denver. Yeah, we'll be upset in the morning. But for the most part, I want to stay positive and be a happy, cheery kind of channel for the most part. MSJ is saying Lowry was the de facto coach. Nick Nurse had ideas for sure, but the players listened to Lowry to listen to Nick. And beyond that, Nick Nurse and front office did whatever Kawhi asked. Players win, including Gasol in this. I'm not going to disagree with some of this. In some ways, that 2019 championship team was able to coach itself. When you have people like Marc Gasol and Kyle Lowry on the team, Even Kawhi Leonard, he's going to do what he's going to do. I don't know how you coach Kawhi exactly, but you say give him the ball is basically how you coach him. So I don't disagree with this. In fact, the closeness of Nick Nurse and Kyle Lowry really kind of shows that they were a partnership as far as leading the team together. And I mean, I don't want to discount Nick. He was definitely our head coach, but Kyle's leadership on the court, especially seeing it in the Miami series right now, is very evident that it was a factor in how our team ran. And especially in his absence in the last 2 years, we see kind of the void that not having Kyle's voice around our team causes. And that is a very important statement to make. The importance of Lowry paired with Nurse and his success. Mike saying, I think Coach Bud's strength is building a structured system. He's a former Spurs coach. So yeah, Bud overachieved with the 2015 Hawks, then got the Bucks job. Yeah, he did really well in Atlanta too. And that's the thing. He's a successful coach. And if he's a system builder, I kind of like that. In some ways, that made me kind of think, he builds a structured system. Well, the Raptors kind of need that. Okay, Mike, are you trying to sell me on getting Coach Budenholzer? Infamous is saying people forget Kawhi first choice was the Lakers, not the Clippers. He always wanted to play for them. So you're going to try and see. I don't see how Kawhi gets on that team with LeBron there. There's within reasons with salary and things like that. As far as like AD, they're talking about how Russell Westbrook, they can't afford him in the Clippers this summer. So he will not be returning to the Clippers. He's already looking for another team. There's going to be a lot of like flux as far as people are going to be moving around. I made the prediction in the last couple of days that DeMar DeRozan will be a Clipper next season. I still believe that. And I think that Kawhi may be on his way out and going somewhere else this summer from the Clippers himself. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how this all goes down. And you're right. He wanted to play for LA. He didn't specify. In some ways, the Lakers may have been his first choice. Wayne's saying, don't overthink Kawhi, Lex. He wanted to leave. He's a jerk. Well, we have to a degree, because in some ways it's a very pivotal moment in our franchise. The decision by Kawhi in the middle of the night to go and take the deal with the Clippers. I really think that it was a slam dunk that he was just going to go to LA. But when we won the championship and how things went, he was really telling the truth when he really had to take some time to really think about his decision and really mull over. Like Scotty has said recently, having the whole city and the whole country of Canada cheering behind you is something else. And people have said, Kawhi, you walked away from being like the king of Canada forever, for the rest of your life. You could have been that dude and had a whole country behind you and you'd be a legend forever, but you walked away from it. In some ways, that's kind of, it's too bad. It's kind of too bad. Well, what if he came back and he reclaimed it and everybody fell in love with him, and then he really doubled down on being like a Canadian legend because he wins another championship. He wins one, goes away, comes back and wins another one with us. That would be amazing. Holy crap, that would be amazing. Let's see. Where am I here? Okay, logical. But Bud ultimately underachieved with the Bucks. Similar to Casey, went out too early again based on sticking with that regular season system with no adjustments. So yeah, clearly Bud and Casey are similar. So it's a thing where like he doesn't switch for the playoffs. He has a way he does things in the regular season, and he just sticks to it in the postseason. Yeah, that sounds a lot like Dwayne Casey. But it's interesting that he did succeed and win a championship that one year with that kind of like mentality. Yeah, I'd hate that. I don't want to have in some ways I like Casey and I wouldn't mind having him for the development of these guys, but the underperforming in the playoffs compared to your record, yeah, that was never fun with Casey. That was never fun, and I'm sure it wouldn't be fun with Bud. Infamous is saying DeMar did an interview with Stephen A. Smith. Believes he would have won the title in 2019. Yeah, we talked about this yesterday. I respectfully disagree with those guys, and I don't blame DeMar for thinking that. It's not even he thinks that really. It's Stephen A. set that up for him to have to say that. Of course, he's going to say, I think I could have done it. If he'd said, I don't think I could have done it, Stephen, what would that sound like? That would sound weird. And he can't say it that way. So Stephen A. Smith set him up for that. And in some ways, it's not fair to DeMar. Just because you believe it, Stephen A., you put it out there. I mean, in some ways, we've already debunked why that's not totally true. That Kawhi had to make the shot. Kawhi had to be Kawhi in a lot of ways in that whole run to the championship. And even like Nurse, he couldn't be replaced. Mike had a really good statement in that. It's like there's certain things that Nurse did as a coach that Casey may not have done. And this very much circles back to what we're talking about right now, adjusting from the regular season and making changes quick enough in the postseason. And Nick was good for that. Like we said, the switching on Giannis in the Milwaukee series, very, very symbolic of what we're talking about. Now, would have Casey have made these adjustments at certain times so that we would have been successful? Who knows? But in a lot of things, we could look at and say that the evidence is probably that he wouldn't have. So that's the thing. You could say either one. Like, okay, you switch DeMar for Kawhi. No, because DeMar's defense isn't the same as Kawhi's. You switch Casey for Nurse. No, because Casey doesn't make the same in-game adjustments as Nurse does. So their statement, in some ways, I'm mad at Stephen A. Smith for setting up DeMar to look bad like this. I don't want people coming after DeMar and saying he's crazy for thinking that he could have won the championship at this point. Because in some ways that's not fair to him. It's all woulda, coulda, shoulda anyway. It's dumb. So I blame Stephen A. Smith. Fuck you, Stephen A. Smith, for setting up DeMar with a dumbass interview question. A woulda, coulda, shoulda. It's the past, 5 years ago. And we'll never know this. And why the fuck we even bring it up? Denal saying, that's facts, MSJ. Also, Kawhi ignored Nurse a lot and did what he knew he had to do to win. There you go. I could probably see that. I could see that. That may have been frustrating for Nick, but as long as Kawhi was successful, he's like, oh, fuck, well, he's not fucking listening to me. Oh, yay. Woo. Kind of stuff like that. MSJ saying, yeah, you could be right. Maybe the NBA wanted Kawhi to LA or just out of Toronto as the NBA buried our championship muy rapido. All that asterisk stuff, laugh out loud. It was as if the NBA was angry at it. Yeah, we had the audacity of Toronto coming up and smacking the Warriors around. If they had planned things, the Warriors would have won another one and they would be perfect. In fact, Steph Curry has a dumb memory. He's saying, has anybody ever beaten us in the championship in the finals? I'm like, yeah, motherfucker, Toronto did. You keep forgetting that. It's like they act like that shit didn't happen that one year. Steph Curry, you can't fucking say you're undefeated in the playoffs. Motherfucker, you got beat by us, bitch. And that's why it's like, what, you guys just glossing over history and conveniently forget that 1 year in 2019? Oh, you don't count it because of injuries? Fuck all that shit. We know there's injuries every year, and they are a factor in who wins the championship. So, yeah, there's a lot of different things about this. They wanted to sweep it under the rug. They barely want to even call us the champions the year after we won. There's all kinds of stupid shit with the NBA and they're like the way they look at our championship. They're really, really weird shit. Shir Khan saying, good morning, Raptor Freak family. I believe Nick and Masai were not seeing eye to eye for a while now. The roster wasn't great, but was better than the record this year. Not enough development and change in season and anticipation. Yeah, I think that's very true that Masai and Nick weren't seeing eye to eye anymore. They may have been at the beginning of the season going in, but by the end of the season, it wasn't like that anymore. And who was in Nick's head? And why was he not listening to Masai? Why was he so stubborn and doing the things he wanted to do the way he did and not getting good results? It's seriously, in some way, in like in the middle of the season when Nick knew, like, okay, we have another 6-game losing streak. We're really below 500. I want to make 500, but can you do it and still develop the hell out of young players? Like if he had pivoted around December to like, all right, I'm going to play heavy on the young players for a while and really see if we can get going somewhere. And he had just developed the shit out of Delano and Koloko and Jeff Doughton and different people like that. Maybe he wouldn't have been fired this year. Then maybe if he had decided to go in the development route that Masai was asking him to do, he wouldn't have gotten fired. That may have been a thing that could have saved Nick's job this year, is if he had listened to him. Leslie's here. Good to see Leslie Hart. Kawhi's knees are done. I wish him all the best, but I don't think he will win another chip. Yeah, a lot of people are saying he should just retire. Quit being a distraction. Quit being like this, getting our hopes up. What is going on with you, bro? What is happening with your knees? Who knows? In some ways, maybe we don't want him to come back here. That may not be a good idea to get him this summer if he's available. Cool Cat saying, good morning, Raptor Freak crew. At four at Seminoles, putting in some sweat. Hope Cardi is enjoying the summer tours. Yeah, Tallahassee's a cool city for a dog. There's some good dog parks there. I'm sure Cardi's enjoying being in Florida. I think it's fun that, like, seeing the clip of him flying down on the private plane with the dog in the seat sitting next to him was hilarious to me, Scott. In some ways, you don't really bring a Rottweiler on a plane to fly a commercial. How often do you see Rottweilers on planes? Most people don't bring their dogs on 1,000-mile trips, but you're in the NBA, you have an owner that's cool like Larry Tannenbaum, and you get to go on the private jet. Boom, your Rottweiler's sitting on the plane with you, flying to Florida. I wonder if that dog has to have a passport. I wonder if that dog has to have the passport or anything like that, or if there's any special things they've got to do to be able to bring the dog from Canada to the U.S. back and forth. Either way, I'm glad Scotty can bring his dog with him, because I know that when this dog was away from him for obedience school last summer, he was really sad away from Cardi. And I'm glad that he doesn't have to choose between going to Florida and visiting all his family and friends and leaving Cardi here in Toronto while he's gone. He can bring the dog with him. It's awesome. I love seeing that. I really do. In some ways, I want to see Cardi get an Instagram page or some sort of YouTube channel or something. We want Cardi content. Scotty, put some Cardi content out. Like, put that dog on blast. That dog is cool. Monique is saying, good morning, everyone. Don't go to the Lakers, Nick Nurse, and I have my reasons why. Ooh, yeah, because that'll look like collusion, because that'll look really fucking fishy. If, like, all of a sudden he sabotaged his job here in Toronto and he's going to go coach LeBron James and he's a member of his agency, Clutch, yeah, that'll look really, really fishy. That'll look like some sort of weird scandal kind of bullshit conflict of interest. And I'm not about that. So, Nick, don't go coach the Lakers. If you do anything, do not do that. Now, the Lakers are being pretty successful in their postseason run right now. So maybe Darvin Ham is a little bit safer with things right now at this point because of that. So we'll have to see. All right, what happened here? Anya's saying, I ain't hating on Nurse, but he did fuck us up. I still believe we have a better team than any team in the NBA. Also, Kawhi is a bum. Nothing unfair there. Nothing unfair there. He did fuck us up. He totally fucked up the end of our season. He really, really did. If he had just done the press conferences mismatched, the end of the season press conference flipped with the press conference in Philadelphia, that one should have been at the end of the season instead, then we would have been okay. But he fucked up. He called Uncle too early. He was under the strain and the stress and the sadness and whatever he's going through. And he yelled out Uncle Mercy earlier when things were still in the heat of the battle and we need to go forward. That showed weakness. In some ways, what Nick did in that press conference showed weakness. And the fact that he doesn't regret it, well, that says a lot right there. That was very much on purpose. And the fact that Masai says he should regret it, he knows he regrets it. And then Nick saying, I don't regret it. See, that's fucked up. That's clutch right there. That is clutch right there. Sabotaging his career here in Toronto and get him the fuck out of here by giving him bad advice, probably, to say some stupid ass shit in Philadelphia. Yeah. I think we have a very good team too. I think that people think we're mid because they're only judging us by our output with our record recently, but they don't understand we've underperformed. They don't understand that we have a way better talented team than they think. And they're going to find out. Once again, that may be how we're a submarine this season coming up, is we've been mid the last couple years or so. They may not realize that we're ready to come back up again and kick a lot of major ass with a new coach and a new identity and a new way of doing things with a better structure. So, yeah, let them sleep on us. Let them think that we're not very good with the roster that we have right now. Let them be fooled, and they will find the reality when we come see them. Mike is saying back in the day, the Magic and Kareem Lakers head coach one year had a stroke 2 weeks before the playoffs, and they promoted Rick Westhead. It was it's not Rick, it's Paul Westhead, or it's Paul Westhead. It's not Westfall. But he won the championship as a rookie coach. Yeah, that's in the winning time series. You can see that all happen. He didn't have a stroke. He had a bike accident. He was riding his bike and he like wiped out and he landed on his head. And in some ways that was a stroke that was caused from the bike accident. Yeah, then the coach had to step down and then they put Paul Westhead in as the coach of the Lakers and won a Showtime era Lakers championship. Yeah, that's all documented on the winning time special. Now, that part of that, though, was that he was very much his number one assistant under him and knew his plans and how he wanted to run things. And you see, back then, there were only like 3 coaches. There was the head coach and then like 2 or 3 assistant coaches. And that's it. You didn't have a whole lot of people on the bench. So at that time, I forget who the coach was that went flying. It was I forget his name. It's like McKinney or something like that. Anyway, he had Pat Riley and Paul Westhead as his two assistants, and he brought Pat Riley in underneath him, Paul Westhead, when uh, he needed the help. But in some ways, that team was set up already. I mean, people talk about this and this and this. You look at who the fuck was on that team. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, one of the greatest centers in the whole history of the entire NBA. And not only that, he was in his prime at that very time in 1980. He was in his prime when Paul Westhead coached the team. And then you got rookie Magic Johnson, who's on the team with the MVP. That team was just stacked. They had so many good players on that Laker team that once again, you put anybody give them the keys to the car to drive that team, they're going to probably win. So in some ways, it's like, yeah, I get it. They had to switch coaches because of a medical emergency, but it didn't matter. They didn't skip a beat. And in some ways, it's partly because of the coaching on the court by Irving and Kareem and situations like that. So it's an interesting example of like switching your coach really quickly because of a tragedy or like an emergency, but not a really good one to use for any other thing because it's a very special case that they were set up to win already. Trust me, they were going to win. They were on destiny. Mike's also saying Paul Westhead then got the permanent job, but he tried to get Magic and Kareem to run his structured system, which Magic didn't like. So Jerry Buss fired Paul, even though he won the chip. Yeah, Paul Westhead went on to become the coach of the Denver Nuggets after getting fired by the Lakers. And his system was a very crazy, high octane system, and maybe the most craziest high scoring thing ever in the history of the NBA. In fact, he got teams to score 200 points back in the day with the Nuggets. That's how crazy it was. And that Magic didn't want to work as hard as Paul Westhead with his hurry up offense. That's the thing, is what it was. Paul Westhead was like this crazy offensive genius. And he, like I said, there were games between the Pistons and the Nuggets in the 80s. You can go look at the highest scoring games in the history of the NBA where they scored like 400 points between the two of the teams, like something like that crazy in one game. That's the kind of stuff he wanted them to do. And that's why they were like, we're not into this. This is a lot of running, coach. And it was good for the Nuggets because the Nuggets played in Denver, Mile High, and they tire the hell out of their other teams. And that was Alex English at that time, in fact. Alex English, Fat Lever, Michael Adams, those guys were on that team. Even Joe Wolf was on the Nuggets around that time. And they very much ran other teams off the court. There wasn't a lot of defense. There was a ton of crazy fast breaking offense where they scored so many points, like 180 points in games, stuff like that on the regular. So that's why they fired Paul Westhead. He didn't get along with Magic, and Magic didn't want to go all crazy up and down the court like that. He had his own way he wanted to do things. Well, Westhead went on to the Nuggets, and that's where Paul Westhead coached next. Let's see. MSJ saying at Leslie, and I agree, his best days are behind him. At 31, all those knee issues have been playing more like a 41-year-old, one of the best ever, but just not able to put a complete career behind him. That's part of the tragedy with him. Fuck around and sit out and like fuck with the Spurs, and maybe you have some bad history after that with not being able to make games because you sat out on purpose. Well, now there's a weird kind of thing coming around and saying, well, you can't play anymore, or maybe he's just slightly hurt. He's like, if I'm even a little bit hurt, I don't want to play no matter what. I don't know. Your time is ticking, Kawhi. And as I've said in the past month, your career will be looked at totally different because of all the games you missed. And if you'd played more like LeBron and been there for more of the time like LeBron over his long, long career, you would be in the GOAT conversation, but you're not, because you have not been there. You're a part-timer. You're a half-timer. You're only there half the time. So you only produced half the shit that you could have. And you're not going to be in any of the lists or the accolades for in the future. People will forget Kawhi Leonard over years. And he doesn't realize that. He's too dumb to realize that. His little game with load management and not playing, well, you're going to be a footnote in some ways. Some people will remember you and some people will be like, I don't remember that guy. Yeah, because he was barely ever playing. And that's the sad thing about it, dude. You can work so hard. You could be so good. You could have so much potential. You're going to be a footnote, and people will not know who you are 50 years from now, whereas they will know who LeBron is. They will know who Michael Jordan is. They will know who Wilt Chamberlain is. But they won't know who Kawhi Leonard is because he didn't make enough of a name for himself or wasn't there enough. I'm telling you, that's going to happen. And he doesn't even realize that. That's so sad. Nameless to say, Milwaukee did what Toronto did when they fired Dwayne and hired Nick. Yeah. Yeah, and they may exactly do that. They may turn around and fire Budenholzer and hire Nick for a very similar reason that we fired Dwayne and got Nick in that point too. Yeah, I think this is true. Mike's saying so. It's like vets need a different coach than younger guys. I think there's the rub. I think this is true. I think that in some ways, especially now with the younger players being undisciplined, being not fundamentally good overall, in some ways they need harsh guidance. And the old NBA player coach like Phil Jackson or Nick Nurse doesn't really fit a young team that needs structure and needs to be like accountable. That's the biggest thing we need next season. We need somebody to come in and hold people accountable and say, look, this is what you do, Scotty. This is what you do, Precious. This is what you do, Pascal. This is what you do, Fred. And you need to do it. And if you don't, then we're going to give it to somebody else. And in some ways, Nick just giving the stars wherever the fuck they want without being accountable was hurting our team with as far as like our quality of play and how good we could have been. That's what we need. We need a coach that'll hold them accountable, have some structure, and say, this is how you succeed under me. And if you don't do what I ask, you're not going to succeed. And somebody else on the team will get their chance. So I'm all about that. I'm all about that. And I think it's true. Different coaches for different places with where you are with your roster. And it just so happens we morphed from a championship veteran team in 2019 with Nick to the point that we're at with mostly young players, one of the youngest teams in the league. He's not a good coach for young players. That's just the pure truth of it. I'm sorry, Nick. You're not a good coach for young players. That is one of the things we found out this year. Tom Duke is saying Giannis wouldn't had a say in the coaching situation, right? Is that part of the speech on failure he made that caused the stir? Was Giannis defending Coach Bud? Perception of failure and success. And well, like put that in juxtaposition to what they just did with Budenholzer. And it's like, does that make sense? What Giannis is saying, if the team is not acting in the way that Giannis is saying, that's true. In some ways, they're hypocritical, and there may be a disconnect. In some ways, it could be true that Giannis does want Nick Nurse, Tom, as you're saying in your next statement. But who knows? I mean, in some ways, I would think that the Bucks were pretty loyal to Coach Budenholzer because in some ways it seemed like they were still bought in with him, even though they lost. I don't know. There may be more to that situation in Milwaukee that we don't know about. I don't focus on them like I do the Raptors, obviously. So I'm really going by like the noise around their fan nation on Twitter and what they're saying with their opinions, mostly on what happened. But there could be internal stuff that was going on with things that may have added to the reason why they let Budenholzer go. So who knows? Infamous is saying, hang on, it jumped, of course. Where is it? Infamous is saying they asked Giannis why he didn't cover Butler. He said he wanted to, but followed the coach's orders. That told me all I needed to know. Budenholzer had to go. The star player didn't have his back. Yeah, I remember hearing that too. And that is a real telltale sign. That is a red flag. That is a red flag, as Tom's put in the next comment, that he wanted to cover Butler. And that may have been one of the very simple adjustments that a Casey or a Budenholzer should have made that he didn't. It's like, why the fuck didn't you put OG on LeBron, Dwayne? Why didn't you put Giannis on Jimmy Butler, Mike? And Giannis saw it and he wanted to do it, but he followed the coach's orders. The front office could come and say, hey, Giannis, how do you feel about how we went out? I really wanted to guard Jimmy. He wouldn't let me. You're fired, Budenholzer. Boom. Boom. I wanted to guard Jimmy. Tom's saying the red flags. Didn't hear that. Yeah. Name was saying, maybe Tom, good point. And that's the man that may get it done too. And yes, I would be upset if Kawhi came waddling back through the door with his tail tucked. Look what you did to us. Well, in some ways, he didn't really hurt us. In some ways, it sucks that we didn't get a chance to repeat. But in some ways, we were very strong and fine without him. And we've done very well without him. Considering that losing the caliber of player he is, we made up for things pretty good in the years since Kawhi's been gone. So I don't feel like we're a victim in this. That's the one thing. I don't want to victimize ourselves and say, look what you did to us. It's not like that. That motherfucker didn't want to hang around. Go ahead. Go. You can go sit on a bench in LA and take Steve Ballmer's money instead of Larry Tannenbaum's. Wayne Stranger saying, hypothetically, do you really see a Coach Hammond putting up with Kawhi's bullshit? Love Kawhi's game, but his toxicity we can win a championship without. Well, let's put it this way. She already knows Kawhi because she was coaching in San Antonio when he was there. So she's seen everything that has to do with Kawhi. So she knows him pretty well because she was actually on the team when he was still there. So that's part of it. She's familiar to him, and it could very well be he respects her. You may be surprised that, like, the people that really respect Becky Hammon around the league, and somebody like Kawhi would respect Becky Hammon because, in some ways, they're the same kind of person, a very high level athlete that achieves and succeeds. And that kind of mindset, when it's shared, that very much bonds people quickly. So Kawhi knows she's serious and she's all about winning, then he will respect her and he will play for her. Trust me. And it's not that they're strangers; they know each other because she was there with Popovich coaching him when he was there. So it wouldn't be a weird foreign thing for him to listen to Coach Becky. In fact, he may very much respect her, maybe even more than he respects Nick Nurse in some ways. Shane saying, "Who are you trading for Kawhi though, Lex? That's the concern for me. He's an injury risk more than ever." That's the tough thing. That's the gamble. And that's why in Masai, we got to trust that him and Bobby are going to look at each situation, assess the risk reward, and going to be just like how they were with DeMar and Kawhi in 2018 summer. That you got to really look at that risk reward and really think about how it could go. And that's why I was like, and you're right. Who would it be? I don't know. He already said this week, I heard that OG's not involved in any trade talk this year because he doesn't want to trade him. Maybe, I don't know. But even though OG made me the one that makes the most sense in some ways, because in some ways, I don't know. That's tough. It's tough. You're right. In some ways, it's the very high risk. And it may be a higher risk than in 2018 when we brought Kawhi here. It may be a higher risk because of the injury factor this time. So, yeah. Anya's saying, true, MSJ. The NBA don't want us to win the USA. Hated that we won the championship. They won't want to keep the game a Canadian invented. There's something weird with what happened this year. I think so too. I think in download, there are a lot of ways that the NBA as a whole manipulates the league and how things, outcomes and stuff. Like even the way we went out in the play-in was a little fishy. The way our whole schedule was set up this whole entire season was fishy. But we just have to be badasses and just beat the gauntlet of whatever they put in front of us. And that's why next year, I want to see these guys come back in a better way. Shane saying, snap. Sorry, that was my kid who did that. So sorry. It's all good. Shane's kid is being a mod and modding Anya here. It's cool. It's all good. I left my phone for a second. She was mucking with it. It's all good, Shane. That's funny. That's hilarious. Name was saying, I'm from Siderno, Italy. You know how we would have handled Kawhi? Google it. Some concrete shoes. Ooh. Scary. That's scary. I'm glad that you're my friend, Nameless. Tom Duke saying, haha, Lex will read it out anyways. Also, I think Steve Kerr and Pops are the only untouchable coaches, and I will embrace the clawback for sure. Tom Duke with the cups. Yeah, see, he's all about Kawhi coming back. He knows what that could mean if Dr. Alex can fix his knee and make him back to who he was before, and he comes back. I would add Spoelstra to your list, too. I think he's untouchable also. I think he's gotten to the point where he's very much like such a big part of their culture there, and they love him so much. He could have a really bad season, and they'd still want to keep Spoelstra around. So I really think those three. I was really hoping Nick would be the fourth name on that list, but we fucked that all up this season, and it's too bad. It's sad, and it sucks. And Nick, man, you had it like Kerr. You had it like Spoelstra. And you fucked it up, bro. Why? Why did you do that, Nick? Why did you fuck it up? You had it good like these guys. You could have been an institution, bro. Here, you would have been an institution. Denal saying, I'm from Queens, New York, Nameless. We'd have handled him quite well, too. Italy and Queens. Yikes. Oh, my gosh. Crazy. Mike saying, there's weird narratives about the Bucks ring with the condensed season and injuries. Certain people call it a hospital ring. I don't know if they played in the decision to fire Bud from the GM's view. I hate these asterisks. I hate these sullying of rings where they talk about us. They talk about the Lakers. They talk about the Bucks like you're talking about. They've done it to so many different teams throughout the whole history of the league. It's really just hater fans that hate the team that won, that want to sully their accomplishment. It's a big part of us talking about the Lakers bubble ring as being stupid and not real. Well, the format was different and it was an uncommon situation. But now everybody's trying to say, because the Lakers and the Miami Heat are doing so well right now, oh, that bubble doesn't look so bad with how the teams are doing in the playoffs. That's stupid shit. These are totally different teams than the bubble teams that Miami and Lakers had. There's a couple of key players that are the same, but for the most part, this is a very different Lakers team than the one that won championship a couple years ago. And this Heat team isn't the same totally either. So yeah, it's dumb. It's dumb. They're trying to fortify the bubble championship for the Lakers by saying that the outcome and what's happening in the playoffs right now solidifies that that wasn't a fluke, that the Lakers did this in the bubble championship. You know what? In some ways, maybe we should stop just sullying everybody else's championships because it goes every which way, whether it's ours, whether it's Milwaukee's, whether it's the Lakers bubble championship. Stop sullying it. Just let them have accomplishments. Haters going to hate. They're going to put down our championship. They're going to put down Milwaukee's championship. In some ways, I could say the part of the reason why the Bucks won is because of Scott Foster. It's a very easy way to say shit because the evidence is there. Scott Foster was in between Chris Paul and winning that Larry O'Brien. And he got to that point. He was so close. He was in the finals. Well, Scott Foster made sure he didn't fucking win by helping the Bucks beat them as a referee. So, and we've seen how he can very much change a game, like at a moment's notice with Scotty Barnes this season. So don't think that that's not a factor in how the Bucks won. Also, he very much they got a helping hand from Scott Foster in his animosity towards Chris Paul. Now, if you see the Suns lose today and Denver's up big on them, yeah, they are going to get rid of them quick because they don't want Chris Paul to ever win a championship. They really, really don't. There's a personal vendetta between Scott Foster and Chris Paul, and in extension, the referees to a degree against Chris Paul, and they will make sure that that man never, ever wins a championship at 38 years old. His clock is running out. He's not going to get many more chances. This may be his best chance this year. We'll watch them railroad them out. If we see Scott Foster referee in Denver and Phoenix in a crucial elimination game where Phoenix is eliminated and they lose and they're out and Scott Foster is on the court, yeah, you'll know who is there. You'll know who is there. Yeah. All right, Mike has another comment. 2021 run for the Bucks was a bit easier from certain injuries, but how is that Bud's fault and something against Bud? But at the same time, the undeserving thought pops a little. I don't get it either. I mean, it really is like that Janet Jackson song. What have you done for me lately? Do, 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 do. Well, you had a first round exit against the 8th seed, and that looks really bad. But they don't remember all the good stuff, like the fact that the Milwaukee Bucks a couple months ago looked like the juggernaut. They're a tier above everybody in the whole league. In fact, I thought it was very impressive how they overcame the Boston Celtics in the standings over the course of this season. That the Celtics were winning at a crazy clip, and it looked like they would be the number one team in the East no matter what. Well, the Milwaukee Bucks overtook them. And in some ways, that's an accomplishment of having most wins in the regular season, but it doesn't matter. The postseason is the only season that matters, and you're fired, Coach Budenholzer. Bam, that's how it goes. Infamous saying, if Udoka would have waited, he could have had the Bucks job, which I think he would have been perfect for. You know what? In some ways, you might be right. But I don't care. I'm glad that the timing happened this way. He wants to be anti-woke in Texas with all those crazy Texas people in that red state for that Houston Rockets team. You go ahead, Emi Udoka. Those are your people. Those are your people. Go get with your people in Texas. Yeah, Texas. Yeah, maybe he wouldn't have been as good in Milwaukee. I don't know. I'm glad it worked out this way. And he's latched on to Houston. In some ways, that takes Udoka out of the picture for being a problem, possibly, like coaching for the Milwaukee Bucks or something like that. So I'm glad he's in Houston. In some ways, I'm not as worried about Ime Udoka being a great coach next season because I know he's going to have enough just trying to get that team out of the weeds with how bad they are. And it's not going to be an overnight success story. Trust me. They're going to have a bad season next year too. And he's not going to look like the crazy great coach that he did in Celtics. All right, let's see. Denal saying, good take, Lex. Masai said these 2 years were supposed to be developmental and growing pains, yet we did no developing or growing bench, guys. Masai had 2 wasted years of pay to not see guys' potential. I could argue last season he was actually successful at winning and developing, but this year he missed the mark on both of them. He didn't win and he didn't develop. And that's a fail. It's like either you got to pick one or the other and be successful at it. If you had won a shitload this year, Nick, and we had been a badass, I'm sure you would have been fine. If we had lost, but we had developed guys, we saw real good leaps and jumps with people like Koloko and Delano, then you may have been safe too. It's like, but you went that middle path and you kind of fucked yourself because you didn't do enough developing and you didn't do enough winning, and boom, you're gone. That's how it works. And you're right. I don't know if it's 2 wasted years. I would say this past year may have been a waste in certain ways, but in a way, you could really paint the picture as this was a good learning experience for our guys. It bonded them in the trenches to stay together. And there's some good things that came from this season, even if it didn't look like a successful season. And I would say last year was not a waste. There was a lot of good things about last year. But I get what you're saying. Wasted seasons for development, maybe. That may be fair to say, for sure. Yeah, Wayne is saying, well said, Lex. Nick Nurse pivoting in December to develop the bench would have demonstrated effort to the front office, win or lose. I think Nick Nurse's job would have been salvageable if he had more faith in the youth. You know, if he had shown that more, if he had listened to Masai and that development word, he could have possibly saved his job. That's why I feel like he was sabotaging things on the download, whether it's like really weird movement between the G League team and the main roster, whether it's like his ignoring the bench, whether it's him overplaying the starters like crazy. I felt like he was sabotaging our team to an extent. I really do. I think he was purposefully sabotaging our team. There were games where we were close and we would have won in the past. We were much more capable. We do things smarter. They get the ball to the right people, and we'd win and close out games because we'd manage the game better. But we didn't do that this year. There's very poor management of close games this season. And it's like that doesn't totally go away. Like we know how to do that kind of stuff. Well, why the fuck didn't we do better in those situations? Was Nick not coaching them correctly or causing confusion in those, like not structured enough that these guys failed in those situations, whereas they succeeded in those situations in the 3 years before? Like even in the Tampa season when we were not very good and we were in a bad situation, we executed in late game situations much better than we did this year. And that's what I'm saying. Nick, you're pulling punches. That's how it feels to me. It's like, you know how to win games when they're close to the end of the game. Well, why the fuck aren't you doing it? Is it partly because you overtired the starters playing them too much? Or are you not giving them the right goods to be successful to win the game? And maybe Fred in some ways was put in a bad place. He's like waiting for Nick to kind of tell, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? He's like, just go out there and do what you guys do. What the fuck, Nick? You're not going to tell us how to fucking win this game in the last 2 minutes here when we're only down by 3? What the fuck, Nick? Like, seriously, it seemed like that at times this year, that he wasn't even fucking helping them with guidance at the very end of the game to win the game because there wasn't a lot of success in those close game situations this year. And that's weird to me. When they had it the year before and they've had it in years like Tampa ever before, why did it go away this year? They should be building that up and be better at it year after year instead of showing a decline in it. That's very fishy and sounds like sabotage by the coach. Adoka saying, Ajee saying, Adoka took the Rockets job because if they don't succeed, it's easy for him to say they're young and developing. Him not improving a supposed mid team would make him a failure. This was a cop out. I know. I love that your take on this, G, and I love it. I think you're right. Like if he came to Toronto and he didn't do much better than Nick this past year, yeah, he'd look like a failure. So it's so dumb. I'm glad he's not coming here. In fact, if his reasoning is that we're too woke, that's ridiculous. Whatever, bro. Just because some people up here judged you for something you did, well, that's fair. There's a lot of people up here that don't agree with what you were doing in Boston. And it's allowable for our fan nation to be like, okay, we don't really like this guy because he's a womanizer. And he's like, he's kind of shady and shit and stuff like that. So, Fiercely saying, good morning, fam, and happy Sunday. Just joining the stream, which I'll watch what I missed later. All right, Fiercely Saucer, Scotty Barnes, Switch family, and great Raptor freak. Good to see you this morning. Jimmy saying, what up, everyone? Happy everyone is having a great Sunday. What a beautiful day outside. Yeah, I've got some flowers sprouting out in the yard. I'm really excited about the spring weather. I'm going to go sit out in the yard for a while this afternoon and just soak up some sun and have some nice times with the outside air. Jimmy saying, oh, yeah, I just read that. Mike saying 3 seconds or less offense. Laughing my ass off. I don't even know what that's from or pertaining to. All right, let's see. Monique is here. I love to see Monique. And I said my fair share on why I don't want Coach Budenholzer on my IG stories the other day. That's right. She did make a list of why she doesn't want Coach Budenholzer. In some ways, he's a retread. In some ways, he's an old coach from the old NBA. And that's what I'm trying to say right now. The game is changing at a very fast pace right now, and we do need to tap into one of the newest geniuses and head coaching prospects. That we need somebody who's cutting edge, like Nick was at that time, to catch up and be on the cutting edge of things now. Is it somebody like Charles Lee? Is it somebody like Becky Hammond? Is it somebody that's young and new on different teams that could be the next guy or gal that's coaching our team? Who knows? I want cutting edge, and I don't think Budenholzer is. He's a retread, and I don't necessarily want a retread to coach our team this year, like Kenny Atkinson or Frank Vogel or Mike Budenholzer. We want somebody new and fresh that's getting their first chance because they could be very innovative in a way that's cutting edge in the new NBA. Leslie saying the NBA doesn't want Toronto to be successful because it doesn't benefit them ratings wise. They want to take all of our talent, coaches, and president. Yeah, they're going to try to. That's why we have to stay steadfast and do the best we can with what we're doing and operate at a high level. With people like Masai Ujiri leading us, I trust that we will be fine and we will be great. Whatever priorities the NBA has for certain things, as long as the league seems fair to a degree and we have our chances and there is a path for us to be successful to get to Larry O'Brien's, then I'm okay with it. It's just that there's going to be some favoritism for certain teams and some teams not getting favoritism. And we're one of those teams, sadly. Mike saying facts, a stronger handed coach. Yeah, a coach that'll actually hold them accountable and say, this is what we're doing today. And I want to see this, and not just kind of like leave it up to you. Hey, you love doing that, Precious? You can do that in the game tonight. All right, I can do that in the game. You like doing that, Fred? All right, you can do that in the game tonight. All right, I like this coach. He's letting us do what we want to do. Let's see. G saying the old head teams minus Celtics are doing well in the playoffs. This is where that discipline shows. Well, let's look at the 8 teams that are still in the NBA right now in the playoffs. They're still playing right now. Well, Miami, Golden State, the Lakers, they all have a very strong veteran cores that are very much important. Like their most important players are all old head pros. Even the Celtics, they have old pro heads on their team that are very much important, like Marcus Smart and Al Horford. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are young, but they're at the level where they really are kind of vets and they have a lot of experience in the playoffs. So I don't necessarily count the Celtics as a young team. They're a very veteran, experienced playoff team. So you could say Miami, Boston, Philadelphia, even to a degree. I mean, you look at Harden, PJ Tucker. They have older players on that team that are old heads that are important factors in their team. New York is kind of the younger team out of the 4 in the East. And in some ways, they're the ones that are least experienced and maybe don't fit the categories of the other teams that we're talking about, like old head professional teams that are more likely to win because they're vet. And the other side, you could say Denver's got vets for sure. And Phoenix, definitely. I mean, Chris Paul, Kevin Durant, come on. That's as vet as you can get. So you look at the 8 teams that are in the playoffs still right now, and there's a heavy, heavy veteran influence and veteran core. Guys that are in their 30s that have been around for like 10 years that really, really know how to play the game. And that's something that needs to be paid attention to. Everybody thinks the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to be a championship contender in the years to come. You better be holding your breath for a while because they have to age into being able to be that level and be better. So that's what I'm saying. The folly of building just around completely youth is really stupid, especially since the youth today isn't fundamentally good. And in some ways, they don't really know how to play the game right. So I'm saying the proof is in the pudding. You shouldn't build just young teams and have a bunch of young athletic superstars and think you're going to win. You need a very much a mix, especially with some very important veteran leaders on there guiding the way and showing it. You have to have some very key players be like 10-year vets. If you don't, you're not going to do it. So that's part of it right there. The old head teams are doing it. MSJ saying, I would say we are a second round team. Our shooting is the major issue. If the players can correct that, it would be very hard to beat us. Where's this better shooting coming from? The current roster. Well, improvement from Scotty and Pascal will help a lot. Fred not having half a year where he's off, If we get Gary back, Gary could be great again. Hopefully, Joe Wieskamp steps up. Otto Porter, we make some moves. Maybe we draft an incredible shooter in the draft. We make a couple of like very big free agent moves where we bring in somebody we know will very much help us like this. Dame Lillard, once again, seen at the Phoenix Suns. Not, which game last night? He was at the Suns Nuggets game, I think, the last game he was at. So he a couple days ago. He's been showing up at a couple of games. As he said, I've only been to 2 games, but in some ways it's signaling something that he may be available this summer. Like if you have Dame Lillard on your team all of a sudden, that helps your shooting. I would think that would help your shooting. So there's a couple of different ways we could do it. Improvement from within is the obvious, easiest way in some ways from the inside, but we're going to make some moves and we'll get better overall too. Infamous is saying Kawhi is breaking down. It's a telling sign when you can't go in the playoffs despite tons of load managing. Well, they're done. They're out. He's done. That team was out of the playoffs, and that's just how it goes. You can't show up, you can't be there, you're not going to win. And that's how it goes. He didn't seem like he cared enough in some ways. It's like, all of a sudden, I'm not going to play. I'm not going to play. Well, that's the demise of the LA Clippers for the season. And, I'd be pissed at him if I was a Clippers fan. I'd be pissed at him and Paul George for the return that you get from them as far as showing up. Infamous saying, I read that one. Anya's saying, we will win it all with any coach we get. I'll see Jimmy Pope at the parade. Let's go. But I think Masai needs to hiring you to get this toxic negative brick fans off of our players. Listen, if someday I somehow finagle my way into like some sort of official job with the Toronto Raptors franchise as an information person, or like maybe they need social media people that are doing content out there to fight the good fight for perception and issues that are around the Raptors, go ahead, hire me, Masai. I'll come down there and work for you guys for sure. Put me in-house. I don't want to work for Sportsnet or TSN, but I'll work in-house directly for the team as somebody who's a media liaison to help with the perception around the team and fighting the good fight. Because in some ways, we're learning this from politics, that the Democrats and the Republicans have operatives in the field that just purely work on social media and changing the tide of perception, how people think. That this may be a valuable thing for NBA teams eventually at some point, with so much bullshit and noise and hearsay and dumb stuff and rumors, that they may need more, not just a PR department, but a social media perception department that's helping with the team. So, hey, I'll politic for a job right now directly with the Toronto Raptors. If you want to hire the Raptors freak to help y'all fight the good fight of information and the perception around the team, hey, I'm there. I'm there for you guys right away. I know I'm already doing it for free. So like, why would we pay him? He's doing it for free. I don't know. Maybe you won't find there's anybody better to do it. And you get me come in there and do it officially. I'll be all about that. That'd be a fun dream job. I said to myself, I'd want to work for the Raptors. And I did. I fulfilled my dream, even though it was in concessions. I went and worked for the Raptors and did it. But in some ways, I'd like to work for them in a different capacity. That'd be fun. That'd be fun. MSJ saying at Denal, yes, this year, the lack of development was so obvious. It was painful. I'm not surprised what Masai said and that Nick Nurse was fired. A 500 season isn't terrible, but Nick Nurse did not develop this team. Yeah, he just, and honestly, it's a faith thing. We don't have faith in him anymore. Like as soon as he did that press conference, I lost faith in him. And I hated that because I had complete faith and trust in him. That what he's doing for the Raptors is the best thing. Well, I found out I shouldn't have had trust and faith in him because he'd given up. He'd waved the right flag. He said uncle on this season. And that's too bad. You need a stronger leader, somebody who's not going to give up or say uncle like he did. Fiercely saying, Lex, I believe you when you said the NBA would extend the Golden State Lakers series for money reasons. Lakers blowout. Yeah, last night the Lakers blew out the Warriors. And, the thing to look at with these series and when we're talking about ref manipulation is look at who's getting the free throws. Listen, it will switch from game to game in series. So people that say it's the style of play, well, they don't really play aggressively going into the lane to get draw fouls. That's why they get way less free throw attempts than that team. Well, that's bullshit because you can look from game to game and it switches. One team will have way more free throw attempts in the series and then the other team, they'll flip-flop it. And well, we can go look at the games from last night and we will see that in the Golden State Warriors Lakers game last night, The Lakers got to attempt 37 free throws. Meanwhile, the Warriors got to attempt 17. That's 20 more opportunities for points given to the Lakers in this situation. So, and then they win by 30 points or 20 points or whatever it is. It's 20, right? It's 30 points. They won by 30 points. So, they get a build off of a little bit of a cushion from, all right, a little bit extra padding, get to the free throw line just a little bit more than Draymond and Steph, LeBron, and boom, you see that it helps them. It's a launch pad. It really is a way they do it because it changes. And a couple of games in this series, the Warriors have gotten more free throws than the Lakers. So looking at the free throw attempts for the teams is a really good indicator of which team the referees are going for and trying to help win. And last night it was definitely the Lakers. And I'm sure Warriors fans love what I'm saying because they agree with it. They will agree with it. Oh yeah, 37 to 17 free throw attempts. That's a big difference. Now let's look at the Knicks and the Heat from last night. What are the free throw attempts? 22 for the Knicks and 31 for the Miami Heat. So they got 9 more free throw attempts and they won by 19 points. They did shoot pretty poorly, both teams. It's not like they shot a whole lot better than the Knicks. It's just that, certain things, little prop ups in certain ways, boom, you see what happens. So tonight, they're favoring the 2 away teams. So if you guys see Boston and Denver win tonight, let's go look at their free throw attempts tomorrow after they play, and you'll see what I'm talking about right here. Let's see. And, look at it this way. If the Warriors had won against the Lakers last night, that would have been almost a slam dunk on the Lakers are doomed to lose the series. The Lakers had to win the first game in LA because it would have looked really bad if it had gone that way for sure. Let's see. Fiercely saying, also looking forward to the changes and commitment to develop our bench. Yeah, a new coach, hopefully. That may be very exciting and enticing for Raptor fans is to see how the new coach handles our bench and see if they get anything cool out of the bench that Nick wasn't getting out of them. It could very well be that we see some blossoming of Delano Banton or Christian Coloco under the new coach next season. It could be really fun and kind of thrilling to watch and be like, oh, wow, look at what Delano's doing now. Or, wow, they really unleashed Coloco finally. And Coloco's actually playing really solid, good minutes in a way that we can have him out there in certain ways. NBA Quick Takes is here. No Bud. He's saying no Bud. He doesn't want no Bud. I'm with you. No Bud. I'll keep the Bud in my joint is where I'll keep the Bud. Yeah, how about that? Mike is saying Paul Westhead's system was like 3 seconds or less offense. That's right. Yeah, he is at 3 seconds or less. You get 3 seconds. Bring the ball down as quick as you can. You have the score, and that's it. I haven't watched Winning Time. I watched the 30 for 30 where Hank Gathers died on the court from his system with the players' enlarged heart. Yeah, that was a weird situation. That was at Loyola Marymount. And I think Paul Westhead was his coach at that time. That's right. That was in between the Lakers and his job in the Denver Nuggets, I believe. I don't remember. Maybe it was after. But yeah, okay, you haven't watched Winning Time. You should watch it. It's a cartoon. It's not very factual, but there is a lot of like real stuff that happened that's in it. But some of it's dumb because they have a lot of dumb jokes that don't need to be in it. And a lot of like trying to be like silly and funny. They're trying to do too many things all at once with Winning Time. They should have either just made it a docu-series and not so comedy oriented and stuff like that in dumb ways. But it's worth watching. It definitely tells the story of that season for the Lakers and kind of what was happening there. And it has that whole part with the coach getting hurt on the bike and Paul Westhead having to take over. So I would watch it, Mike. It's worth watching, but it's not very, in some ways it's fictionalized. Let's just put it that way. NBA Quick Takes is saying, do you really think the Raptors will run it back next year? Please, no. You mean as far as like we're keeping the same team? Well, we're going to run it back with as many of the guys as we can from last year, but we will make changes. This is the prediction I've been making NBA Quick Takes, is that our summer this summer will be similar to the summer of 2018. We're going to switch our coach, which we've already fired our coach. We're going to get a new coach, just like we did in 2018, and we're going to make a monumental move, just like we did in 2018, like the Kawhi, DeMar DeRozan move. So that's my prediction right there, Quick Takes. We're not going to rebuild. We're not going to destroy it and completely rebuild it. We're going to make a huge move that's going to shuffle up, and we're going to get a huge franchise player once again, just like Kawhi, And next season, we're going to come in with a new look and we're going to be very scary with a new coach and a new franchise player. So that's what I'm going to predict right there. So do you call that running back? I call that changes, like plug in and play, like Masai said. You plug in something new. You don't take the whole thing down. You plug something in new, like a new coach or a new superstar, and boom, see what happens. Championship 2019. And that's what I'm saying about this summer. I think that it'll be very similar like that. If Masai's playbook is like that, I could see it happening like that. MSJ saying, hopefully after 1,000 subs, donations will roll in for you. I appreciate that, MSJ. Whatever. This journey is the journey. And as people have said recently, enjoy the journey and don't worry about the destination so much. And that's what I'm trying to do. This journey may be long and arduous, but I'm willing to take the task and I'll get there when I get there. But I appreciate your sentiment and we'll see. I mean, listen, like I said, I'm not doing this for the money. It really is because my passion and my love for the Raptors, just like you guys have. And that's why y'all know I'm a real one, is because you can't deny the authenticity of the passion that would make a man like me get up for 601 days in a row to talk about the Raptors every morning. But I appreciate that. And we'll see when we get there. I was really kind of like loosely saying if I can get there by next September, that would be good last year. So if I can get to 1,000 by this September, that may be good, but I don't know if I will. If I don't, it's not a big deal either way. Monique saying Nick Nurse will run Giannis to the ground. That may be very true. Like, think about Nick Nurse's coaching style with the Bucks. He could very much keep them winning at the clip that they've been winning already. He could have some very innovative ideas for how to use Giannis, but he's definitely going to play those guys way too much. And how will this suffer for guys off the bench? Like, will Joe Ingles never play again? Joe Ingles, you're just at the end of the bench now. Sorry, bro. Oh, man. Country Kong's here. Good to see Country Kong. Scotty Barnes, Twitch family in the house representing Country Kong. Good morning, Raptors freaks. Has anyone thought about who the Raptors should draft this year? I feel like we need shooting and playmaking. There are a few dynamic guards I like around the 13th pick. Well, I know Monique has already been looking at some of the names and stuff like that. It's too early for me. I really am a one-track mind. I really want to know who our coach is first. And then maybe I'll speculate about who we may draft from who we get as a coach partly. So I'm not getting ahead of things. In some ways, I wish I could just tell you, yeah, this is who I would draft, this is who I draft, but I haven't done any of the homework yet. I don't watch any college basketball. The only person I know is Zach Edey, and I like him, but that's not enough. I'll come in, I'll do the research when we get close to the draft, and we'll talk more about it. But if you guys have people that you already know about and you want to put on blast, that's kind of what we did last year. Is you guys would come in and give me a name, and then I'll be like, okay, I'll go look at this guy. Oh, okay, Koloko. I'll go look at him from Arizona, and I'll watch him, and then I'll get acquainted to people that way. It's kind of sometimes very much you guys can guide me in what I research by who you guys are big on. So Country Kong, if there are names that you like, put them in the chat, and I'll go look at them. But I'm not totally ready for that yet. I want to see the coach first. Logical saying, off topic, apparently the guy I used to skateboard with just got voted Skater of the Year by Thrasher Magazine. Wow, yeah, I found that out yesterday. Wow, that's cool. Good for him. Good for him. Skateboarding's still around. There's still very much skateboarding people out there in culture and pros and stuff going on. It's really interesting to see the evolution of skateboarding and as a sport and the different things that have happened. You look at Tony Hawk, and this guy's in his 50s now. It's crazy. Anya saying, "Yo, I do NBA quick takes." And what? G saying, Con, do you mind naming some? I've not been up to date on the draft this year. Personally, want a shooter and shot creator, someone quick like a Tyrese Maxey type. Ooh, we could get a Tyrese Maxey type. That'd be fantastic. MSJ saying, I think you will be at 1,000 by the end of the summer. Who knows? I may have to do some clickbaity kind of stuff. There may be some controversies this summer, and you guys may see me do like a clickbaity kind of day one day where I'm just like putting a headline that's just going to grab people. Who knows? There may be more cross promotion in different ways that I may be able to attract more people. If we can do this by the end of the summer, that's fantastic. But I'm letting it happen naturally. And you know what? I should probably promote my channel more than I do. It really is up to like the search engine. If somebody's searching for Raptor stuff and they just happen to click on me and they find me, that's usually how. Because I'm not promoting the channel as much as I should. I really am not. I should do more of that. I really should. Quick Takes is saying, new superstar, please. Pascal is no superstar. Well, that's what I'm saying, Quick Takes. There's a possibility that we may trade one of our main players to get a more bona fide superstar that may be older and more seasons of being really trusted. Something like Dame Lillard, Luka Doncic is sounding like he may be up and about, available this summer. Even Giannis. The names that are out there about possibly being on the market this summer are very interesting. I think the Masai knew this already because he said this at the end of the season interview, that he's like, look, you don't know who's going to be available this summer. It's not about free agency anymore, guys. It's about who's unhappy and discontented where they are and they want to get moved. And Masai's positioning our team with its assets and its ability to make trades with attractive assets in a good place, just in case something comes up like a Kawhi deal in 2018. If Luka all of a sudden isn't happy in Dallas, he wants to go somewhere else. Well, Masai might want to have something available to trade to them to get Luka in a Raptors jersey. Same thing with Giannis. Same thing with Kawhi. We don't know what's going to happen with these big names. Things are in flux in a different kind of way in the NBA than ever. And part of it has to do with like guys just being pissed off and not wanting to be on teams anymore. Take advantage of those situations. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm not going to say it's specifically going to be Siakam for sure, but definitely he's a trade piece that could be looked at and may be more attractive going the other way for somebody like that. Who knows? He definitely will match the money better than a lot of the guys on our team, but I don't necessarily want to get rid of Siakam. I don't. In some ways, I want him to be our second banana and just get somebody next to him that can do things and he can be more like he was on the championship team. Mike saying big facts, Lex. Your passion is undeniable at this point, no doubt. I appreciate that, Mike, and you do too. I mean, listen, you put a lot of time and effort into your channel, and listen, that is all passion and heart. I know you're not getting any money for it either, and it's like that's what keeps us going. Is that we love the Raptors, we love the NBA, and we love watching basketball and like speculating and learning about it and becoming more students of the game as time goes on. You are definitely a student of the game. Seriously. You're talking about old eras today. You're talking about the 80s basketball, Paul Westhead on the Lakers. That's old school. And most general NBA fans today would not be thinking about that kind of stuff because they just don't know their history. So in some ways, you are just like me. Your passion is just as undeniable also. MK's here. Good to see MK. It's been a bit. Always good to see you drop in. I still think we have a roster problem, and it wasn't all Nick Nurse. Scotty and Pascal are very similar players, and we can't bring one off the bench. So someone has to play out of position. I don't know the solution. Well, yeah, that may be true. I've wondered about how they fit, and it worries me in certain ways. But I think it may be like I really do want to see how a coach would do this differently other than Nick, because that could solve some of the issues. It may be that they just need to be more creative in how they're using them off of each other. That there is some good gold between Scotty and Pascal. When they're in the break, sometimes their breaks with each other are really awesome. In fact, I compared them to like Magic Johnson and James Worthy at one point this year, with Magic being Scotty and Pascal being James Worthy in finishing. Like, those guys really could be unleashed on the break. That if we could get a more up tempo kind of way of doing things and really smart and they spaced them right, Scotty could be so deadly in the fast break. That's one thing that I know he's going to be really good at in the years to come. It's just that we didn't utilize the fast break in the right ways because we were overplaying on defense too much in certain ways. And Scotty and Pascal on the break are fantastic. Now, when they get slowed down in the half court, that's where we start to see the problems you're talking about. And that's the thing that I'm worried about. I don't know. They're different players to a degree. I just worry about Siakam and how he fits with everybody as far as like, he's been so isolation oriented in the past few years. And I know Nick Nurse was part of that. And that's why I want to get a chance to see Siakam with a different coach with these guys and see if he's totally used differently. That if he's not like doing exactly what he's used to doing bread and butter, maybe he's out of his comfort zone and he's doing a little bit more all around on the court and not so relied on to be our number one scorer all the time. That in some ways we kind of miss out on the potential of all the skills of Siakam. We get them in little bits, but he's so focused on scoring. It's almost like I'd like him to be like an all-round player. Look at getting a bunch of steals, bunch of blocks, rebounds, assists, all that kind of stuff, and the scoring will come regardless. So I don't know. There is some solutions we still need to come up with, and I think you're right. Getting rid of the coach will be the big first step, But there may be a couple of secondary steps that we still need to make to suss this all out and make it smoother. I think you're right. Fiercely saying, I remember when Koloko was drafted last year, we kept seeing this clip of him hitting threes. He can do it, but wasn't given the opportunity, I guess, in terms of playmaking, only used to protect the rim. His threes are funny. He has the potential to hit threes, but he shouldn't be shooting them too much. His strengths really are within 10 feet of the basket. And it's funny because he's not good at threes everywhere. He's very much good at threes at the top of the key. His corner three he worked on a lot in 905 this year, and he got better with it. But in some ways, him shooting threes, even though it's a good weapon, I'm kind of with all these old vets these days. They're saying stuff like these 7-footers should not be shooting so many threes. It's like, dude, you're not a very good 3-point shooter. Why are we shooting so many threes? Why does everybody have to shoot threes? In fact, I have a prediction that the NBA is going to have a trend of rebels, people bunking the trends of like, oh, so many 3-pointers and stuff like that. What if a team finds a whole bunch of success by going back to some so old school mentalities of maybe like we go for the easier shot, we go for the higher percentage shot, we do more mid range, fuck all the metrics. Fuck the fucking Billy Ball kind of metrics of thinking about, well, if you might as well just take a three instead of just taking an inside the 3-point shot, you might as well just step back and get that extra point because the metrics and the statistics of it. Fuck all that shit. Let's go back the old school way of winning things in the 80s and 90s and what makes sense and fundamental smart basketball theory. In fact, there may be a real renegade team that comes up and wins it all in the years to come because they're more old school in a new school way that doesn't work anymore. In fact, I'm going to predict this that the more that things get worse and worse in this league with fundamentals, poor decision making by players, that the teams that do the best are the teams that are more old head, more smart, more fundamentally right, more like the 80s and the 90s. So in some ways, you do want to build your team that takes into account the new NBA and the new rules and the way the style of play. But if you can play the old way in the new style now, you may be a winning team in this league. And that may be the mark that you want to find on the dartboard is hit that spot where you can win in the new NBA, but you're using old school fundamentals and mentalities to win it underneath. In some ways, that's the truth of the Boston Celtics. In some ways, that's the truth of the Golden State Warriors. That is the reason why they're successful and do what they do. They meld the old and the new in the right ways. We could say Steph Curry revolutionized the game with a 3-point shot, and he's very much the epitome of it. But Draymond Green is a throwback, like he's on the Detroit Pistons in the late 80s, early 90s. And that's what I'm trying to say is like you got to take successful building blocks from the past that we know you are building blocks towards championship and use it in the new systems and the new ways of the NBA. Integrate them both, the best of both of, and have that on your team, and you will be successful. I think that everybody thinks that the future is just offense and 3-point shooting over and over again. There's going to be a wall that hits, and the teams that are going to be successful are the teams that are kind of debunking that and going against it at some point. So I'm interested to see how the game evolves. It's evolved so quickly recently, and it's part of what we're talking about today. That's why these championship coaches are being fired. The game has changed just in the last 3 years. Let's see. Mike saying, I think knowing someone and sort of playing the same sport on the team, kind of see him hit the mountaintop and knowing how he was very early on is part of my understanding of developing sporting skills. Okay, so you're talking about your friend is skateboarding and you've seen where he came from and where he's gotten to, and you realize that it is a journey and that you can kind of see his development and where he is now from when you remember him from before. That's a good lesson for sure. Monique saying, I do the draft prospects early because to educate myself and so on. I like that, Monique. You could be a draft expert for us this year. Last year, a lot of it was Mike and Greg. Well, no, not Mike. Mike wasn't around yet, but Greg, definitely. Gubstown Clink was all over all the draft prospects, and he was really feeding me names all the time last year, like Jalen Williams and different people. I would go check people out because of what Greg was talking about on his channel, or he'd come in here and drop a name or something. So yeah, go right ahead. If you want to be a draft expert on this channel this year, Monique, you go right ahead, do your studies and give us the info. We love when you do the research and you come and enlighten us. We appreciate that. MSJ saying, I think the best thing would be an after game breakdown stream, but lots of work. You be at it day and night. Clickbait works, but yeah, you need a bit more promotion. Have a good day, everybody. I did a couple of after games immediately reaction, But you know what? I'm not very good at night. I'm really good right when I wake up. And that's part of my energy right now and positivity that Trevor likes. Later on in the day, I'm pretty stoned. Like I have my 420 in different times, and I may not be as quick when it's around 10 p.m. and the Raptors have just finished their game. I noticed that when I tried to do like after game reactions a little bit this season, that it was kind of pointless. I get on there and I wasn't really like making total sense. And I was kind of like, yeah, I don't think I'd much rather sleep on it and then the next day get up in the morning and react to it in the morning. But the timeliness of what you're saying is right. Or maybe even streaming while the game is on and watching it and talking to it. I've tried to do that too. I don't know. I feel like what I'm doing right now works and it's the right time. It's just I've got to do more promotion. I think that that's the key right there. Tom's saying, so I just looked at your poll to go to the other day on Dylan, 76 votes, and it's pretty much 50-50 want him. What's the new poll today? Oh, you want a new poll, Tom? All right. Well, let me go write a new poll for Tom since he's required it or asked for it. Let's see. Let's make a poll. Let's make the poll today. Do you feel like Coach Bud was fairly fired? There's your coach, your question for today. We'll say yes and no and post. There you go. There's our poll for today, as Tom Duke has asked for. Do you feel like Coach Bud was fairly fired? Yes or no? That's a simple question and answer for you. There you go. Yeah, and let me look at the poll from the other day and see where we're at. So there's 76 votes, and there's just one vote more for no Dylan on the Raptors. Okay, so officially the poll is saying no Dylan on the Raptors for the most part. All right. Anya's saying, Fiercey, Loco, Coloco, later, Lex, and Raptor Streets. Go chill with my peppers and my son. Everyone have a blessed day. All right. Go chill with your peppers and your son. You go, Bradley and Anya, on a Sunday. Yeah. Mike's saying, I think knowing someone and playing the same sport on the team kind of, okay. That's the same comment you made earlier. That's weird. Fiercey saying, back to the old ways, please. Much more interesting to watch as a fan. More exciting. Yeah, I think that a lot of people have stopped watching the NBA. It's a really weird phenomenon. It's kind of like with wrestling right now. Old people that loved old wrestling hate new wrestling. It's really been since Vince consolidated the whole business when he acquired WCW and ECW in the early 2000s. He had a monopoly. Well, the quality of the product without competition went down. Horrible. In the last 20 years, I don't even acknowledge the pro wrestling history. Well, in some ways, the NBA mirrors pro wrestling. That the style and the way that it is, it turns off old fans. The basketball time machine, Sean David, very much hates the NBA at this point. He's like, I only watch old NBA games. Some people watch old NBA and they ignore the new NBA and the games that are happening right now. In some ways, that's should be scary to Adam Silver, but it isn't because his numbers are higher and the attendance, the broadcasting numbers are all up more than ever right now. So in some ways, there's a weird like, okay, the old loyal fans hate the new NBA because the way it's evolved, but there's a lot of more people tuning in and watching. There's problems with today's NBA. And in some ways, I'm glad as being a Raptors fan and being so passionate, I'm not against the new NBA to the degree that some of the old fans are that hate the NBA at this point and what it's become. That because I've followed the Raptors so closely over the years, I don't really notice the change as much as they do. Then maybe they went away for a couple of years and they come back and they're like, what the fuck is this on TV? The NBA product sucks. I hate watching this. Who can watch these prima donnas in this no defense, soft ass league? That's how some of the old heads that look at the NBA at this point are like, what the fuck? And they are just like you. They want to go back to the 90s feel of the NBA. They want to go back to how it felt in the 80s with teams. Well, there's certain things that have changed about the league that won't allow it to feel like that anymore. And some of it has to do with the rule changes. Some of it has to do with the free agency and the movement of players. Some of it just has to do with the DNA and makeup of young players and who they are. And the way that they get coddled is way different. The passion for the sport is different from Isaiah Thomas, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan's era to today's era. There's a different kind of passion. There's way more money. And in some ways that ruins things. It really, really does. So there's a lot of different reasons why. It'd be fun if we could revert back to an old school kind of NBA like the 90s, But how do we do that? Because I don't think they're moving in that direction. In fact, they're moving more and more away from that in certain ways. So, oh man, I wish we could get those old feelings back. It'd be really cool. Mike's also saying skateboarding tricks. Okay, Mike, I don't really. All right, I'm just gonna pass that. I don't even know what you're talking about. Muscle memory, aka rep work. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of similarities in skateboarding and basketball, I'm sure. And Fiercely saying, personally, I find it hard to watch a game and stream at the same time. I'm too focused on the game. Yeah, yeah. Like I don't want people to choose between having me on watching, like what you put me on and you listen to me while you're watching the game. And sometimes it just doesn't work. I'd much rather just do reaction streams. And because we do it live and we do it in an interactive way with the chat, 9:30 is a good time to do it. Some people just like, they're not ready to do it right after the game. They're tired. Those guys like Samson Folk, they can do their reaction pods afterwards. But a lot of that stuff isn't interactive like we are. And also, I've also said that I like to sleep on things and collect my thoughts in my dreams. And I may have better insight in the morning after I've slept on it after the game than like reacting to it right after the game. Now, if we have a bad loss and things are shitty, I may be more pissed off after the game without sleeping on it too, and maybe more overreactive in a bad way. And that's something that I've thought about also. So it is what it is. Mike saying, yeah, a lot of sports connect in different unique ways. I find that extremely interesting. Yeah, I can understand what you're saying. Like if you're trying to do an ollie, you got to get that muscle memory to get your body just right with the skateboard and how you land on it and everything. Yeah, no, I can see that and the parallels for sure. All right, let me just go over the last couple things I maybe wanted to talk about today. We're at 2 hours. Wow. Yeah, once again, Coach Budenholzer fired this week. The poll is up. Mark, whether you think it was fair that Coach Bud got fired by the Milwaukee Bucks this week or not. That's where the poll is today. Smash the like button. Thank you, Shere Khan, for the algorithm. Yes, as always, Shere Khan, I appreciate that. Games last night, the Miami Heat winning and the Lakers winning at home. We had predicted that yesterday. So today, if you want to hear my picks for the wins today, I'm going to go with the Denver Nuggets and the Boston Celtics. So Denver and Boston should win today. Monique, thanks for sharing that really cool picture, that really cool clip of Becky Hammon talking about trust on your Instagram stories. I really love that post. I love what she said. If you guys want to know who Becky Hammon is like, go and check out Becky Hammon's acronym on trust. Such good content, such good stuff. Just a really quick news and note. Bronny has signed to play for the USC Trojans. So he's going to go the way of DeMar DeRozan and go play for USC, committing to that. That is a news of note, I guess, that Bronny is going to go there. And then finally, the referees for tonight, John Goble, James Williams, and Gianmitas Petraeus are in Philadelphia for Game 4. Boston is favored by all three refs. And then Denver at Phoenix, Tony Brothers, Ed Malloy, and Jason Goble. That's whoa. Tony Brothers and Ed Malloy at the same game. Holy crap. That game is favored towards the Nuggets on the road against the Suns. Watch the game today at 3 with the referee replay center talking during the game. You'll hear Sean Wright commenting on the game as it's going on. A very cool thing where you can get more insight on the referees and what they're looking at and talking about during the games. So check that out on NBA Twitter, on NBA referees Twitter. They're going to have that going today. All right, Mike, W Stream. Check that out. Seriously, y'all. Check out the referee stream during the game. That could be very interesting to find out stuff about. What's her IG handle? It's a Superfan Mo official. Yeah. Yeah, you guys go follow Monique on Instagram. She's always posting really good Instagram stories, timely stuff, keeping up to date with Raptor stuff all the time, and even putting her opinions up there too. Thank you, Monique. W Stream to you also. And I'll go all around. Go. Yeah. All right, y'all. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. And let's go Raptors. Yeah, baby. Woo, woo, woo.